Chapter 939. This time his meditation time was much shorter than what Zhong Shou expected. He only used 4 days. However, when he went deep into the black mist, he noticed that due to the death of the formless god-demon, this place had become much thinner. The mist that had thinned out had actually recovered and was even stronger than before. Who knows if it was because of the special environment or because of Julian's methods? 20 miles in, Zhong Shou's 70,000 feet black lightning wings spread out behind his back. Following closely behind, a pair of black and white wings appeared. These were the life and death wings. They gathered life power and death energy, but they were in perfect harmony with the pair of lightning wings like they were originally one. He flapped in the air and instantly traveled dozens of miles. He could roughly feel that extremely familiar aura that was etched into his bones. Julian. Without any hesitation, Zhong Shou stepped into the air and stepped on the sky-burning flame. The energy was as sharp as a spear as it pierced into the red flame ocean. Different from the first time where he took every step carefully, this time Zhong Shou went all out from the start. In his soul ocean, he was still using the Dharma True image to go up against the giant wheel. However, it was obviously stronger than before and he was able to barely go up against it. He totally disregarded the suppressive power, the bright sword light crazily rampaging in the flames. Man and sword merged into one, slashing towards the person standing at the abyss gate as quick as lightning. The energy was sharp, but it was also one body. Julian's eyes also brightened. After which, he happily smiled. "You are quite smart." Until the sword light broke 1,000 feet out, there was no reaction at all. When it reached 990 feet, Zhong Shou suddenly felt that the energy was like a wall. His sword attack needed to use all his strength to be able to advance by half a step. It pressed down from all directions, suppressing the space around him, making him feel really uncomfortable. Scoffing coldly, Zhong Shou wasn't surprised at all. The sword attack that was originally gathered in his hand suddenly spread out. Crazy storm. Sword after sword slashed forwards with great strength. He didn't care about the consumption, tens of thousands of sword energy slashing forwards. Slash. 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 Chop. It was incomparably barbaric. The seemingly random slashes had a purpose behind them. They were either aiming for a weak point or clashing head-on to create an opportunity out of impossibility. In just a few breaths, the layers of energy walls were broken one by one. At this moment, the 39 Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth swords were following behind. There were only 2 more swords, but after Zhong Shou's reorganization of the sword formation in just a few days, power strength had increased by 5%. At this moment, it had transformed into a swimming dragon. Many thin strands of sword energy slashed in all directions. It caused the originally broken energy to become more and more chaotic. Zhong Shou only stopped when he was 200 feet away from Julian. His forehead was covered with bean-sized beads of cold sweat as he arrived at this place. That spiritual sense pressure suddenly doubled, and the energy in front of him became even more powerful and majestic. Zhong Shou felt a sharp pain in his eyes again. The battle in his Sea of Soul had almost reached the point of defeat. Pretty much every step here required huge amounts of energy. His body was not only covered in sweat, but there were also numerous drops of blood. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 1 step 10 feet. When he was 100 feet away, Zhong Shou's bones cracked once more. He tried his best to hold on and not collapse. He exchanged glances with Julian from 100 feet away, only to see that the teen's eyes were filled with a teasing expression. Zhong Shou was expressionless. Not only did the 4 wings on his back not retract, but they instead became even more majestic. Without hesitation, he slashed out with a sword. 3,000 star falling. The sword light landed like it was carrying an entire galaxy. The 10-step barrier was smashed. The sword attack aimed right at Julian's brow. He broke out into a laugh, waving his sleeves and wrapping up the sword light that seemed like it could smash the galaxy into pieces. However, the strong sword energy that could smash everything was like a clay ox entering the ocean, disappearing without a trace. Samuraim's eyes flashed and knew that there was a wheel in Julian's sleeves. The sword energy and sword intent just needed a moment to cycle back. He wasn't shocked or angry at all. He was waiting for this moment. The first to counterattack was the soul ocean void space. First, it was the 9-layer purple-gold giant pagoda that smashed down. The illusionary heart mirror gave out a green light that shone over. It caused the giant wheel to stop. Then, the true image Dharma sword attack retracted, and he slashed up diagonally once more. Slash. When this sword was slashed out, it was so beautiful that it couldn't be seen, but it also seemed really ordinary. It was like the entire world had merged into it. It merged with pretty much all of Zhong Shou's Daos. Merging into one of the Daos. With a loud king, Zhong Shou's sword wasn't in a stalemate with the giant wheel. Instead, when the wheel was spinning at high speed, it forcefully slashed into it. Not only did it forcefully stop the spinning of the wheel, but it also caused the power that was circulating to explode. Zhong Shou's body was also filled with disbelief. His sword attack changed. He turned the slash into a stab. Along with a sharp chi-la sound, Julian's purple robe sleeves were instantly ripped into pieces and scattered. Even his skin and flesh were cut by the sword energy until they were covered in wounds. The power that was borrowed from the Wheel of Reincarnation, along with the power of this sword, was no different from two swords stacking. The sword light instantly crossed that short distance and once again shot towards Julian's brow. Julian was startled and then he understood. A bright light shone in his eyes once more. He chuckled, as expected, using the one Dao to break my wheel Dao, it is a counter to my wheel Dao. Then he formed a seal with his perfect left hand, only to see the torn robe, flesh and blood, and the collapsed energy instantly recover back to normal. In front of Zhong Shou's sword light, a giant wheel appeared. Although it was condensed into one, it was tough to slash in at all. Zhong Shou's expression changed slightly. His face instantly turned ashen white. The wheel could go up or down, but just now it was going against the cycle. It even felt like, if Julian's main body was here, he could even go against time. What a waste, you are still lacking a little. Julian smiled and pointed at Zhong Shou's brow once more. Zhong Shou's eyes were filled with a deathly silence. Could it be that he was going to fail again this time? After the despair, his heart was filled with rage. In such a desperate situation, his fighting spirit didn't decrease but instead increased. How could he be willing to be forced back just like that? His eyes opened wide in rage. The vital energy that had accumulated in his eyes finally had an outlet to vent out. Hundreds and thousands of cracks appeared on that indestructible door. Numerous blood-colored runes flashed across his eyes. At this moment, Zhong Shou felt like his entire body had turned into magma. Julian's pupils constricted. For some reason, he felt his heart stop and then jump like a heavy drum. Large amounts of blood flowed from his heart to his limbs. His eyes were filled with shock for a moment before he saw Zhong Shou stab out with a sword in the impossible. He couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Not only was his sword intense spirit realm, he was even in the intermediate stage. Chapter 940. At this moment, outside of the black mist, Lu Hanyan's body shook slightly and then she looked at her hand in shock. A layer of scarlet and white flames ignited on his body. She pressed her left chest and her heart beat furiously, forcefully injecting blood into every corner of her body. That bloodline power was clearly being strengthened and purified. Furthermore, countless seals of the Lu clan's inheritance were being broken through layer by layer. Bloodline evolution? For some reason, she could feel the surging power. It was endless, like it was vast and indiscernible bloodline retracing. Speaking of which, she had experienced it a few years ago. Her senses were really strong, but it was far from today. It was probably someone from a certain race who entered the Saint realm. However, today, who was it that could cause such a commotion? She raised her head and looked at the gray sky. She could feel that the entire world was shaking slightly. Due to the bloodline power, she could sense that there were invisible flames burning in every corner of this world. They were consuming the foundations of the Nether Jail. It was the world-burning flame, the highest grade bloodline of the Lu family. Was it another venerable in the family who stepped into End Realm? No. This person should be within the Nether Jail. He was using the world-burning flame to burn this world. With fear in her heart, Lu Hanyan subconsciously looked in the direction of the black fog. There was a saint venerable in the black mist. However, the power that purified her bloodline definitely wasn't Julian. To be able to be so highly valued by the saint venerable, was it him? She felt really close to him. It was obvious that he hadn't upgraded and completed the true world-burning flame. The bloodline retracing power was already so strong. Was it Shoer? The moment such a thought rose up, Lu Hanyan felt dizzy. When she woke up, her eyes were filled with shock. She couldn't remember what she was thinking about just now. Beside the black mist abyss gate, energy shook all around. Julian took in a deep cold breath. When the blood-colored sword light stabbed over, the giant energy wheel in front of him broke. All laws became one. The ocean contained thousands of rivers. Hundreds of rivers came from different sources and dangers returned to the ocean. That return to one sword intent caused dozens of different Daos to be merged into one sword. Piercing through, the sword intent was domineering. Julian reacted at the last moment and performed a few more hand seals. In the blink of an eye, several more wheels appeared in front of him. Big or small, positive or negative. Zhong Shou's face was expressionless, and he did not pay any attention to him. The blood-red color in his eyes became even more intense, and the runes were constantly changing and jumping like flames. He only knew how to wave the sword in his hand and slash, stab, slash, tsk. They would do anything they could, not letting go of any opportunity that could be exploited. The spinning wheels of various sizes were shattered one by one, and they were destroyed one by one. He was like a ferocious tiger, madly charging forward with an indomitable momentum. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Gradually, they approached the abyss gate. However, at this moment, for some reason, the entire space around him began to float. There were faint signs of collapse. Countless amounts of spiritual energy were released due to the destruction of the nomological structure. The tremendous impact of the energy destroyed everything. When they reached the abyss gate, Zhong Shou sensed something. He couldn't help but be startled, thinking to himself, why did this happen? He felt that it had something to do with him. In the next instance, the pain in his eyes exploded out once more. The intense pain that he had suppressed for so long instantly broke down all his defenses, gathering in his mind and drowning him. All of a sudden, he was unable to think about anything else. Then he heard Julian sigh. What a return to one sword intent, 3,000 Daos merged into one. Unfortunately, you shouldn't be distracted at this moment. Just as Zhong Shou's mind was scattered by the pain, and the sword in his hand was unable to continue. A finger suddenly pierced in, breaking through the heavy sword light and directly striking at Zhong Shou's brow. Zhong Shou frowned slightly, but due to the intense pain, he found it hard to deal with it. In the nick of time, he blocked the one origin soul sword in front of his body. With a ding, first, his second soul shook, and then it directly struck his main body. Under the huge impact, Zhong Shou's body was tossed back, and his mind was dizzy once more. Luckily, the intense pain in his eyes had also disappeared. Julian's body didn't chase over. In a daze, Zhong Shou used the illusionary heart mirror to look forward. He noticed that he was once again forced out of the black mist. Beside him was that monster tree and that woman. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly, and then his consciousness fell into darkness once more. You broke the rules just now. Within the black mist, a ball of red fire rose up once more. In just an instant it formed the body of a teen. You have to use such methods on a junior, don't you feel ashamed? Julian was still in the position where he pointed out with his finger. When he heard that, he smiled without caring at all. How can you say that I broke the rules? I said that if he could charge into the abyss gate, he could release Lu Hanyan. Since he did it, then naturally, he wouldn't go back on his words. It is just a few days. While speaking, Julian looked below. Actually, strictly speaking, Zhong Shou had already stepped into the abyss gate. He had already decided to release Lu Hanyan a few days ago, and he didn't care much about it. This was why what he cared about now were the last few things. There was nothing extra about it, it was really simple, but it was also really overbearing and exquisite, making one exclaim. If he hadn't used such a small method just now, Zhong Shou would have forced his incarnation back. This kid's sword technique is 70% like mine in the past. After saying that, Julian smiled. Moreover, I couldn't just watch him destroy the nether jail. Now that Lu Tianqing isn't here, it isn't easy to deal with him. The teen called Huang frowned like she was looking down on Julian's shamelessness. Following which she said, "How difficult is that? Just move this Zhong Shou to another world." Julian smiled and didn't reply. Her words were really simple, but Zhong Shou's bloodline mutation had something to do with this nether jail. What if after he was moved, other things happened and the bloodline mutation stopped? It wasn't worth it. To him, even if this 9 extreme death jail was totally destroyed. It couldn't even compare to a single finger of Zhong Shou. The moment Huang mentioned moving Zhong Shou, he knew that it wasn't appropriate. She shook her head, however. Your Lu family bloodline, world-burning eye, once it explodes out, it will be tough to suppress. Unless it is in the outer region void or a saint venerable like you protecting it, otherwise it will destroy a world. This nether jail isn't a normal space, and it probably won't be able to hold on. Julian nodded his head in agreement. So, we need to wait for Tianqing to return. I miss him. The teen in the red shirt was stunned, and only came back to her senses a moment later. You are prepared to let this person be the scapegoat? Seeing Julian's expression, the teen couldn't help but feel angry and laugh at the same time. You're truly a despicable and shameless person. Huang you have followed me for so long and this isn't the first time you know how I am. Julian laughed and said flatly, I can't let the juniors laugh at me. I am useless and can't even take care of a death jail. Huang shook her head, but she knew that Julian was feeling that way. She could only mourn for Lu Tianqing in her heart. At this moment, a ball of red flame rose up in Julian's hand. He focused on the flame in his hand and said calmly, Do you know what I sensed when he condensed his eyes? Huang brow rose up. She also felt that Julian's situation wasn't right. He should have been prepared for Zhong Shou's bloodline evolution and his awakening of the world-burning blood eye. However, at that moment, be it Julian's main body or his incarnation, they were both stunned. It was like they were too shocked by Zhong Shou's changes. If not, Julian's incarnation wouldn't have been forced into such a bad state by Zhong Shou's sword. Even if it was the return to one sword, an intermediate spirit realm sword intent, Julian had a way to deal with it. It is subverting. Julian smiled. Interesting, it isn't merging but subverting. How is it not surprising? When she heard the word subverting, the teen felt like there was a bell ringing in her soul ocean. She didn't even hear the words behind. Wasn't it the merger that she imagined? Using the sky-burning blood to merge with the nine-tailed sky fox, lightning phoenix, and water Qilin bloodlines. It was subverting. What was subverting? It was reversing from the foundations of the bloodline. A light flashed in her eyes as she looked at Julian. Bloodline power was a rare help before End Realm. With strong abilities and also the help of the bloodline mark, one could cultivate 100 times faster than normal people. However, to End Realm Saint Venerables, it wasn't helpful but a restriction. It was the same for Julian. The sky-burning flame and the cycle technique were enough to look down on the millions of worlds in this region. However, he was also restricted by the sky-burning blood and his progress was tough. Normally speaking, there were only two ways to break free. One was to surpass the source of the bloodline on the level of the sky-burning blood. The other method was to completely overturn, reverse, and reconstruct one's bloodline from the very source of the bloodline. Julian shook his head and broke into a laugh. He is far from it and only has such a sign. How can you help this old man? The teen's eyes dimmed like she was slightly disappointed. At this moment, Julian's smile disappeared. He looked into the void with an indiscernible expression. That fellow is finally here. Huang reacted instantly. She also frowned and looked at the void with a wary expression. If it was as expected, that fellow was the other end realm of the sky-burning Lu family, Yenyuan Saint Venerable. Calculating the time, 15 minutes had passed since Zhong Shou touched the critical point of the Blood Eye mutation. This Saint Venerable, whose bloodline was closest to Zhong Shou's, should have reacted long ago. A storm rose up and instantly blew away half of the black mist. The barrier of time and space was silently torn apart, and then it quietly recovered. A cold voice spread over. Julian. Julian's lips curled up and he laughed. Yenyuan. Chapter 941. In other words, Uncle Tianqing, you don't know why the extreme flame Saint Venerable took the Kangwu Saint fruit? A voice spread out from the conch-like artifact, and it was a little distorted. However, one could roughly make out that it was the voice of a teen. Lu Tianqing stood with his arms behind his back and looked forwards coldly. It was a giant tree that was 108,324 feet tall. The tree needed 10,000 people to hug it, and its crown covered 3,000 miles. It was equivalent to 1,000th of this world. This was the Kangwu Saint tree. It bloomed once every 2,000 years and bore fruit once every 2,000 years. The fruit could increase one's lifespan by 100 years. However, at this moment, there were only dozens of spiritual fruits on the tree crown. Along with Lu Tianqing's sword light slashing down, he kept the falling spiritual fruits into the jade box. The number of spiritual fruits on the tree became more and more sparse. Just 10 of them were kept into the box. Lu Tianqing took a whiff of the fragrance and glanced at the dark parasol sacred fruits with great reluctance. He had only consumed one of these spirit fruit. He wondered who was so lucky to have it. Although he had entered the saint realm and wasn't afraid of dying within a few thousand years. However, if he had more lifespan, it would be easier for him to charge into the end realm. He sighed softly and closed the jade box. Only then did Lu Tianqing have time to bother about the voice from the conch. The extreme flame Saint Venerable has always been unpredictable. However, for him to suddenly take the Kangwu Saint fruit, he definitely wouldn't do it for no reason. His voice was really calm and he used the tone of an elder. At this moment, the person who spoke through the conch-shaped treasure was Lu Yunj, the second prince of the sky-burning Saint dynasty. This person was just at the initial God realm. Originally, such a God realm cultivator wasn't worth mentioning in his eyes. However, this person's identity was really special. He was the person who had a chance to inherit the sky-burning Saint dynasty. Even if he lost in the end, he could still become the ruler of a country and rule over close to 100 world. He would become one of the 8 rulers of the Lu family. Moreover, with his talents, it would only take him 1 to 2,000 years to catch up to him in terms of cultivation. This was why Lu Tianqing didn't dare to be too arrogant in his words. In short, he was neither haughty nor servile, just respectful. Then what Uncle means is that Julian intends to use these 10 dark parasol divine fruits to win over Zhong Shou. Now that I think about it, there really is such a possibility. A chuckle came from the conch, but it also contained a hint of seriousness. Other than that, He even used both the carrot and the stick to force Uncle Tianqing to accept the crime of favoritism? Lu Yunj was wrong about the matter of the scarlet hummingbird. Yunj acted inappropriately and implicated Uncle. Lu Tianqing raised his eyebrows. He did not say all this just to hear a few superficial apologies. However, shortly after, Lu Yunj's tone changed. I will help Uncle inform country ruler Xianhua about this matter. The extreme flame Saint Venerable's way of doing things was indeed unpredictable and confusing. We can't afford not to prepare in advance and nip the problem in the bud. However, Uncle doesn't need to worry too much about this matter. Lu Tianqing's lips curled into a smile. As long as Lord Xianhua knew about it, then even if the worst situation happened, there would still be room for negotiation. Although the few country rulers weren't Saint Venerables. However, with their peak Saint Realm cultivation and the close to 100 medium-sized worlds, they had the ability to go up against End Realm experts. He relaxed and that uneasiness faded. Lu Tianqing still listened attentively to hear what was going on. My sky-burning Lu family isn't the same as it was 10,000 years ago. Even End Realm experts can't do whatever they want. There are rules and regulations. Some favoritism is just a small crime. Even if Saint Venerable wants to punish you, you will just be in secluded meditation for 100 years. Moreover, Extreme Flame Saint Venerable also has something to ask of us. Even if we want to turn on one another, country ruler Xianhua has his own way to deal with it. Although my Lu family only has 3 End Realm experts, there are other Saint Venerables in this region. Lu Tianqing's eyes flashed and he frowned. What this person meant was that Xianhua already had outside help. However, my sky-burning Lu family colluded with the enemy, and that is a huge crime. How is it an enemy? That voice scoffed coldly. Can't it be a helper? Country ruler Xianhua controls 120 worlds. Can't he afford to hire a Saint Venerable to ask about country matters? It is only beneficial to my Lu family. Lu Tianqing was stunned and then broke into a laugh. Helper? What a good name. However, he just needed an excuse to deal with the people in the family. This matter was of great benefit to him as well, and was extremely good news. Speaking of which, there was no suitable crime. Then, unless Juyin and another End Realm Lu family expert worked together, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, how was that possible? Then, he shook his head slightly. A cold glow appeared in Lu Tianqing's eyes, and it was filled with a mocking intent. This Lu Yunj hadn't stabilized his position as the second prince, and had just stepped into God Realm. However, his words were very different from before. Although he didn't order him around, he admitted that he was talking to him on an equal level, like he was looking down on him and giving him pointers. He was treating Lu Tianqing, a Saint Realm expert, as a chess piece. However, at this moment, this person was really lucky. In the sky-burning Lu family, he was so hot that his hair stood on end. All of a sudden, he couldn't do anything to him. However, if there was a day when this person was in trouble, he would definitely teach him a lesson. The battle for the Saint Dynasty Emperor position was far from over and anything could happen. Lu Wushuang, such a genius, fell to the hands of the Buddhist faction. Songling World. This Lu Yunj might follow in his footstep. Thinking about it, Lu Tianqing's face slowly calmed down. He originally wanted to talk about Lu Wubing, but now he didn't plan to. Lu Wushuang might have fallen to Zhongshou, that was just his guess. The red hummingbird matter started because of me. If Saint Venerable wants to take responsibility for this matter, then I will take responsibility with you and compensate you for your losses. Lu Yunj's words continued, giving off a bone-chilling intent. However, if everything calms down, then please take care of that mother and son on my behalf. Especially that Zhongshou. He paused slightly and his voice became even colder. Yungu really wants to eat that Zhong Weiron's flesh, skin, and bones. Eat his blood. This person is currently nowhere to be found. Then, to be able to find him from his son is not bad. I heard that you have a 3-spirit corpse asking question bug? I will definitely head to the 9 extreme death jail to personally see that kid in so much pain that he wants to die. If I can get what I want, I am willing to give you 2 Kangwu Saint fruit. Lu Tianqing's brow rose as he heard the crazy hatred in Lu Yunji's voice. He instinctively wanted to reject as this method was just too vicious. However, when he heard the last sentence, he was slightly moved. Chapter 942. Beneath the dark parasol tree, Lu Tianqing put away the conch-shaped Dharma treasure and left the world. Hundreds of worlds away, Lu Yunji scoffed coldly. With a slight wave of his sleeves, the layers of formations and restrictions in front of him disappeared without a trace. This was a sound-spreading formation, although it wasn't unique to the sky-burning celestial dynasty. However, the celestial dynasty's formation pretty much covered 1/10 of the world, at least 5,000 worlds. Within this region, apart from those few powers on the same level as the sky-burning Lu family, there weren't many who could compare to it. There were only a few people who had the right to use it. He was one of them. Old man. He squinted and cursed. Lu Yunji's eyes gave off a cold glow. How could he not know what Lu Tianqing meant? The red hummingbird matter started because of him. However, this old man was too irresponsible and didn't know what was good for him. Shaking his head, Lu Yunji tossed out a jade letter and headed into the distance. Country ruler Xianhua had many things to do every day and wasn't someone that one could meet just because they wanted to. It was enough to send a piece of news over. It was not a big deal. Then, he was in deep thought and thought back to Zhongshu. To be able to enter the 8th layer of the death jail, even the extreme flame Saint Venerable treated him differently? There were rumors that Zhongshu wasn't a weakling in the cloud world. Could it be that he really had some ability? Dual meridian body, a broken body, could he really cultivate? Unfortunately, Lu Tianqing didn't speak in detail. Speaking from far away used up too much energy, and he couldn't find out the details. This person was arrogant and unreliable. If one day he could control the life and death of the Lu family, he would definitely teach this Lu Tianqing a lesson. Also, that woman. His lips curled up and Lu Yunji's eyes were filled with delight. Didn't she think that she was the direct bloodline and never looked at him? Every day he carefully tried to get into her good books, but what he got in return was betrayal. She would rather follow a useless brat from the cloud world than marry him. However, what about now? Han Yen, I want you to personally see that father and son suffer all the pain and torture in the world and die a horrible death. I'll make you regret what you did back then. Just as Lu Yunji was deep in thought, he heard a commotion outside. Looking out from the building, one could see numerous fire-colored lights descending. Who dares to make a ruckus here? Frowning, Lu Yunji also rose into the air. In a flash, he left the elegant building. This was the sky-burning holy court, the most sacred place of the Lu family. Even End-realm Saint Venerables outside of the Lu family wouldn't dare to be arrogant. The commotion was coming from the Lu clan's ancestral temple. In just a few moments, he had already rushed over. At this point, Lu Yunji, who was about to use his status as the second heir of the Lu clan, was startled. He was speechless as he looked at where everyone's gazes were gathered. It was a gigantic stone tablet. At the bottom of the stone tablet, there was a blazing scarlet flame burning. There was a thick blood-red color flowing on the stone tablet. Why is the sky-burning tablet like this? Like the crowd below, Lu Yunji's face was filled with astonishment. This was the sky-burning tablet, the naming tablet. It would show the names of all the people below the Saint realm who had the right to fight for the Saint Emperor position. It would be arranged from top to bottom to determine the order of the heir position. Along with the newly carved Lu Shou, there were a total of 49 people. However, at this moment, the blood words on the tablet had already disappeared. The thick blood flames on the tablet were moving about and didn't show any words. How weird! Could it be someone whose name is on the sky-burning tablet in the Lu family direct bloodline register? Most probably not. Even if there is a new addition, there wouldn't be such a commotion. All of the names have disappeared. If it isn't a new addition, then someone who is listed on the stone tablet has fallen. What about Lu Wushuang? Didn't the top 5 just give off a red light for a moment? Moreover, at this moment, the top 10 heirs are all in the Saint dynasty, so how could anything happen? I feel like something is going to happen. Such a scene has never happened in a few thousand years. I remember that the last time was 7,000 years ago, our Lu family Yenyuan Saint Venerable. The owner of the voice seemed to have realized that something wasn't right and instantly stopped talking. Lu Yunj laughed coldly. The sky-burning tablet made such a commotion when Yenyuan Saint Venerable reached End Realm. However, at this moment, it couldn't be a Lu family venerable becoming a saint. He had never heard of such a rumor before. With the strength of the Lu family, they would definitely announce it and invite the various powers to watch. To flaunt their strength and flaunt their strength, they definitely wouldn't keep it a secret. Moreover, at that time there wouldn't be a scene where all the heirs disappeared. Shaking his head, Lu Yunj raised his eyes and looked at the stone steps of the ancestral temple. It was a bunch of red-shirt female cultivators. The one in the middle was dressed really majestically. Her looks and aura were really outstanding, 1 in a million. She gave off a pure and holy aura. However, this Lu family ancestral temple saint daughter was silent and expressionless. One couldn't see anything from her. No joy, no sadness, no rage, no shock. It seems like our sky-burning Lu family is about to change. A storm is coming. A voice rang out from behind him. Lu Yunj turned his head and saw a young man in his 30s standing behind him. He was wearing purple gold chainmail and had a noble air about him. His jawline was short, making him look handsome and delicate, but he didn't lose his steadiness. Lu Daoyan. This person was ranked 6th out of the Lu family heirs. 10 years ago, he was only second to him. Lu Yunj's pupils constricted and then returned to normal. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind won't stop. In this sky-burning sky, there will always be some people who want the world to be in chaos. When the golden-armored teen heard this, he wasn't angry and instead laughed. He shook his head. It seems like Brother Yunj really didn't sense it. Do you think that I am just spouting nonsense? If the Saint dynasty is in chaos, how will it benefit me? Lu Yunj was startled and a shocked expression appeared on his face. At this moment, he felt that something wasn't right. Many Lu family disciples in front of the stone stele were filled with surprise and disbelief. They all flew into the air and flew to an empty area where there was no one and sat down cross-legged. Lu Daoyan's tone turned to one of shock. Didn't you feel it? This is a change in the bloodline? So, although you are from the Lu family main bloodline, you are actually from the side branch and are too far away from the main bloodline. If I were you, I would have given up long ago. All of a sudden, Lu Yunj didn't bother about the mocking words of this kid. At that moment, his heart also palpitated. It was the bloodline retracing. Speaking of which, like he thought about something, Lu Yunj's eyes opened wide as he looked at the stone stele. Lu Daoyan said calmly, "You still don't understand? Someone has grasped the world-burning blood. Our Lu family's top ability, top bloodline." Chapter 943. The blazing sun burned the land. This was the nether jail, which was originally filled with death energy and Yin energy. Originally, such a sunny scene definitely wouldn't appear. However, since he fainted a few days ago, the nether energy in the death jail was much thinner. In the sky, the scene of the sun appeared once more. Zhong Shou sat under the tree. However, he was far away from the woman, at least 1,000 feet away. For some reason, each time he was beside this woman, he had an urge to lean on her. That aura made him yearn for it. It made Zhong Shoxin feel ashamed. Was he a kid who hadn't grown up? Luckily, other people didn't know, otherwise, he would have lost all his face. He thought about how good it would be if this woman was his mother. Hearing what she said, her master had left and was in the cloud world. If one day he was able to leave the death jail, he would definitely help him search for it. A weird feeling rose up in his heart. Cloud world? Master? Wasn't he similar to him? His mother Lu Hanyan was also trapped in the death jail. He didn't think too deeply about it. He felt like there was a barrier in his mind such that he couldn't think about it anymore. At this moment, he couldn't have any other random thoughts. There was a buzzing sound around him. The 42 Imperial Dao Dragon-Tooth swords all rang out. It had been 8 days since his eyes mutated, and he grasped the return to one sword intent of the intermediate spirit realm. Since then, Zhong Shou felt that his sky-burning flame had some changes. It was much purer and naturally, the flame power increased. When refining the dragon tooth, it became much easier. The dragon tooth left by the God Realm Instant Space Dragon still needed a lot of time. However, under God Realm, in just a day, he could refine it to the point where he could use his spiritual sense as a blade to carve restrictions. He also had some progress in carving the foundations of the artifact formation. Recently, he was getting more and more familiar with it. Apart from the 42 Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth swords, there were 81 Star Dao seeds floating here. The number didn't increase by much, however. If one looked closely, the Dao seed swords didn't change at all. The arrangement of the instant space dragon pellets was pretty much the same as the starry sky. Each position had a corresponding star. This was something that Zhong Shou had barely managed to accomplish after several days of hard work. When the void Dharma form was reconstructed, Zhong Shou's first feeling was relief. The instant space Dao seeds all resonated with the stars and faintly resonated with each other. They also had their own circulation method. There was no need for him to spend any effort to control or adjust it. In fact, every day, he would switch between real and illusory to reveal his avatar. It would also absorb the corresponding star power from the stars to continuously strengthen and refine the Dragon Core Dao seed. Who knows how much effort it had saved Zhong Shou. However, he actually didn't care about all this. What he cared about the most was the harmony of all the Star Dao seed. If they could not form a joint force, then what was the use of having more dragon cores? Only when all 5 of his fingers were clenched together and struck out would he be able to hurt someone. At this moment, Zhong Shou was forming hand seals one by one. He was still making adjustments to these 81 stars. The starry sky Dharma idol in his soul sea was only a rough framework. If he wanted it to be perfect and overlap with the true stars, it was far from something that could be done in just 10 days. It could take tens of thousands of years until he reached true realm. At that time, Zhong Shou would be the true realm of the universe. Apart from that, there was also the sword formation. It allowed the Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth sword and 3,000 star falling to complement one another. At the crucial moment, he would be able to merge these two abilities into one. When the sword rang out, the stars shone brightly. Zhong Shou knew that he had succeeded. This was a sign that they were resonating with one another. The connection between the two of them was already inseparable. Although the changes were small, power had increased by a little. Looking coldly at the black mist, Zhong Shou started to look into his body. After resting for a day, the injuries from last night were all healed up. His flesh and bones were back to normal. During these 8 days, pretty much every day, Zhong Shou would try to charge into the mist to fight with Juyan's essence blood clone. However, apart from comprehending the return to one sword intent on the second day, he nearly stepped into the abyss gate. In the next few days, Zhong Shou returned in defeat. Luckily, each day, Zhong Shou was able to improve a lot. His return to one sword intent became more and more stable, and he still had the ability to fight back. This was why, although he lost badly, Zhong Shou wasn't dejected. Today was the last time. It was also the last chance of the 10 days that Jian mentioned. After going through 2 lifetimes, he knew that more haste meant less success. This was why, even though he knew that the time limit was about to end, Zhong Shou wasn't anxious at all. He silently organized his body, eliminating all the factors that could cause him to lose. This injury, it's healing really fast, shock flashed in Zhong Shou's eyes. Each time he fainted, the unknown woman would use the adversity crossing meridian leading technique on him. Acupuncture and massage to clean out his meridians. Often when he woke up, his blocked meridians were mostly cleared up. However, with the strength of that woman, she definitely couldn't heal half of his injuries in a day. During the 10 days, it was like that every day. It was either some kind of rare treasure or a top-grade healing pill. After his body and soul were heavily injured, they weren't weak at all. Instead, they were strengthening day by day. They were a full 15% stronger than when he was in the 9 extreme death jail. Not only could such a treasure heal injuries, but it could also train the celestial body. The woman's words also revealed something. There was another reason why his injuries healed up. So, what was the reason? Zhong Shoxin was confused and then shook his head. No matter what goal that person had, it had nothing to do with him. The only thing he needed to think about now was how to step into the abyss gate. He didn't need to bother about anything else. The illusionary heart mirror shone forward once more and he heard the woman laugh. "You are already awake?" Zhong Shou acknowledged. The mirror light spun and shone under the demon tree. The illusionary heart mirror shone, imprinting the woman's appearance into the depths of his heart. A sense of melancholy rose up in his heart, a deep reluctance to part. However, he didn't show it on his face, just nodding his head slightly. "Thank you, Senior, for taking care of me these few days. Zhong Shou is really grateful. If I am lucky enough to survive, I don't dare to ask for too much." Lu Hanyan shook her head and laughed. Why did he call her Senior? She helped Zhong Shou heal because this kid gave her a good impression and reminded her of her own child. It wasn't because she wanted to repay his kindness. Just as she was about to correct him, her expression changed. She could hear the determination to leave from Zhong Shou's words. "You still want to enter the abyss gate? Are you confident this time?" Thinking about how Jian only gave her 10 drops of jade bone spirit returning marrow, she couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. "That is a saint venerable, how can I have it?" However, Zhong Shou has to fight and go all out. Zhong Shou shook his head slightly. He was prepared to die. Since he couldn't enter the abyss gate, then he would fight to the death in this black mist. Today was the last day. Once this day was over, who knew what Jian would do to him? Zhong Shou was unyielding in his life. Only this time he couldn't accept failure. "Can't you just not go?" When Lu Hanyan said these words, Zhong Shou's face was as cold as ice. There was no change at all. Apart from being disappointed, she also felt a tugging pain in her chest. She was at a loss, she couldn't bear to. When she first met him, she felt that she had a deep connection with this teen. For 10 days, she treated the young man's injuries every day. She watched his every move and focused on studying the sword art. She was exceptionally contented and warm, treating this young man as her own child. Sometimes, she would even think about it unkindly. If this teen couldn't pass the abyss gate and stayed in the nether jail to accompany her, how great would that be? She didn't feel that such thoughts were weird before. At this moment, when she heard the intention of leaving in Zhong Shou's words, that unwillingness and worry invaded her body like a wave. After keeping silent for a moment, Lu Hanyan gave out a self-mocking laugh. In the end, he wasn't her child, so how could she stop him? Moreover, this kid had already made up his mind and wouldn't listen to what she said. She also had no position. She and this teen had just met by chance, so what right did she have to persuade him? Thinking about it for a moment, Lu Hanyan suddenly took out 3 light purple talismans from her sleeves. She used her soul power to lift them up to Zhong Shou's expression. These 3 talismans were personally drawn by the sky-burning Saint Emperor using his own essence blood. Power is really strong and might be able to help you. Zhong Shou was startled. He used the illusionary heart mirror to look at it and then he was shocked. He felt that the spiritual light within was retracted and there was a hidden treasure within. It was filled with a dangerous aura. The talisman restrictions were simple, but it was the most concise and most precise structure that Zhong Shou had seen in his life. There wasn't any redundancy at all. It really was a top-grade celestial talisman, made by the essence blood of a Saint Realm expert. Then the strength of this talisman was probably comparable to the sky-burning Saint Emperor going all out. Frowning, Zhong Shou instinctively wanted to reject it. Lu Hanyan seemed to have seen through his thoughts and smiled. Since I can take out such top-grade celestial talismans, then why would I lack other defensive methods? Just take it, it is okay. These 3 celestial talismans were personally crafted by her grandfather 20 years ago, in case anything happened in the 9 extreme death jail. However, at that time, the sky-burning Saint Emperor was really disappointed in her. Apart from that, there wasn't anything else. However, at this moment, she wasn't planning on escaping from her punishment. She was going to wait until the 40 years were up and she was free. Then, at this moment, it was useless for her to take these talismans, so why not give them to the teen? Zhong Shou half believed and half doubted. He looked closely at the demon tree. Thinking back to 10 days ago when his injuries were all healed up, he didn't say anything. Thus, he didn't open his mouth to refuse and put the 3 talismans into his sleeve. Since that is the case, then Zhong Shou won't be polite. He wasn't planning on using it. Although Juyin said that he could just step into the abyss gate, he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve. However, if he used external strength, who knows what Juyin Saint Venerable would think about it. This was why during this period of time, Zhong Shou didn't even release his protector beast, much less these celestial talismans. However, these talismans represented the girl's feelings for him. Then, he took in a deep breath. Zhong Shou's vital energy boiled and sword intent rose up. He didn't have much time and couldn't waste any more time. Senior, please take care. The moment he said this, Zhong Shou decisively flashed and charged into the black mist once more. To be continued. Chapter 944. At this moment, within the black mist, Zhong Shou knew everything like the back of his hand. Traveling within, in just a few breaths, he was 20 miles away from the abyss gate. The moment he entered, he felt like his eyes were burning. That day, his eyes changed and he felt like the gate was riddled with holes and was about to break through. He could finally get what he wanted and see what was behind the barrier. However, at the last moment, Juyin forcefully interrupted him and knocked him out with a finger. When he woke up, the barrier had already healed up. Not only were the cracks sealed up, but it was even thicker. As such, not only did the blood spirit curse power in his body not leak out, but it accumulated even more. The barrier was like a dam, blocking all of Zhong Shou's vital energy and curse power behind the dam. The more it blocked, the more it surged. The only way to reduce the pain was to try his best to merge the 4 bloodlines in his body. However, each time he entered the depths of the black mist, the swelling and throbbing pain would follow. He didn't bother about it. The moment Zhong Shou arrived, he saw Juyin, who was standing quietly at the abyss gate, open his eyes and look over. His eyes were filled with curiosity and disdain. How punctual! However, today is the last day, are you prepared? Zhong Shou didn't say a word, too lazy to speak any nonsense as he stepped into the flames. This time, he didn't show his monster body, but each step he took, a black lotus flame would appear under his feet. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace, causing the surrounding sky-burning flame to be unable to get close to him. He didn't use much strength and crossed 10 miles. At this moment, each action of his body, each movement of his hand, Each movement of his leg was filled with Tao attainments. His aura was retracted and condensed into a point. It seemed to be there but also wasn't, changing unpredictably. His body was in harmony with the return to one technique. He had already merged the spirit realm sword intent into his actions. It wasn't as majestic as a few days ago. However, his aura was sharp and even sharper. He was unobstructed and arrived 1,000 feet in front of Julian. The latter's eyes were filled with praise. He already felt that the situation this time was totally different from a few days ago. Interesting. It was only a few days ago that he would make his move when Zhong Shou was within 10 zhang of him. However, at this moment Julian's thoughts rose. Instantly, numerous wheels appeared 1,000 feet in front of him. They were all different in size and power, but they were perfectly able to seal off every inch of space within 1,000 feet. It could crush any foreign object that entered this area. However, Zhong Shou was not one of them. He charged forward 50 feet and slashed out with his sword. He smashed the wheel in front of him with one sword. The sword will remained unmoved. Even the positive and negative wheels couldn't borrow strength to return. A few ordinary swords, but they were incomparably domineering and violent to the extreme. He didn't waste any time and was 100 feet in front of Julian. The illusionary heart mirror light exchanged glances with this person. Zhong Shou slashed down once more with the 3,000 star falling. The lightning wings and the wings of life and death spread out at the same time, extending to 70,000 feet. A 7-colored lotus platform appeared beneath his feet. 9 giant tails rose into the air. It was really sudden. The aura was retracted and instantly became extremely strong. It was really majestic. However, it is still concealing one's spirit and one's qi. Although the river has 10,000 sources, it only has one source. He was inches away, but Julian didn't panic. Instead, he laughed coldly. He formed a seal with his hands in front of his chest, and a giant wheel that covered 100 feet appeared in front of him. There were also countless golden and silver runes engraved on the wheel. It was like numerous daos and laws were merged into it. However, within the wheel, it only represented the cycle path. A few days ago, it wasn't like Zhong Shou didn't charge here. However, today was the only time he was able to force him to treat it seriously and use his core cultivation technique. Kung. The sword light and the wheel clashed, energy waves spread out. It pushed away all the black fog. Hundreds of miles of land rumbled like sand and dust. Be it dirt or stone, they were all turned into dust. The giant wheel spun and spun. The blood-colored sword light only gathered at one point. The two of them were actually at a stalemate. Samurai focused on where the sword tip was. Break. Break for me. Each bit of energy in his body was sucked out. Each bit of sword power was used to the extreme. Going forward, he wouldn't return until he broke. There was nothing he couldn't break. Countless saber wheels suddenly gathered behind Shao Qin and attacked from behind. Zhong Shou didn't turn his head. The 10 extreme Imperial Dao Destruction sword formation automatically activated to protect its master. Within 1,000 feet, the sword energy was dense as it went all out to block the attacks of the storm-like knife wheels. Zhong Shou didn't bother at all. The illusionary heart mirror only focused on the abyss gate in front of him. He continued to increase his strength and squeeze out all the potential in his body. His bones exploded out and the half of the Juntian armor on his body started to burn. However, at this moment, his eyes were filled with pain. It was like the more his blood boiled, the more his fighting spirit rose. That door was even more impacted by the power of the marrow-burning blood spirit. There was a crisp cracking sound and a hole appeared on the wheel. From then on, the entire wheel started to show signs of collapsing. He is prepared to use strength to suppress me? Smart. Zhong Shou didn't care. After all, Julian was formed from a drop of essence blood. The power it contained was limited and the 10 days of intense battle had consumed a lot of it. He had only vaguely sensed this situation yesterday. This was why today, Zhong Shou's strategy was to go all out to force Juyin to compete with him in terms of true qi consumption. At this moment, as long as he could let his mother escape from the death jail, he was willing to do anything. Moreover, wasn't this a despicable strategy? The sword energy continued to charge forwards, the absolute beginning Long Ing roared out. That 100-feet giant wheel couldn't stop itself from collapsing and was about to break apart. Juyin's expression didn't change. His hand seals changed and another wheel formed. The cycle technique could be used in both directions, even if it was broken. Although it collapsed, this reverse wheel could return to its original state. At the start, it was only 30 feet, but in an instant it recovered to 80 feet. The scattered energy flowed back and recovered. The true qi and soul power also swiftly went from weak to full. The Buddhist faction had nirvana techniques, but his cycle technique wasn't any weaker. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for anyone to truly break through this round. However, he suddenly felt the vital energy in his body shake. It came from the junior in front of him. Juyin looked over in shock, only to see Zhong Shou's face was expressionless. That pair of eyes opened once again. His eyes were red like blood and numerous talismans jumped about. He didn't seem to notice at all as he slashed out with his sword. He used the one-sword intent to the extreme. The sword light slashed through the air and the 80-feet wheel broke. He couldn't help but be slightly distracted. He felt that at this moment Zhong Shou was pretty much one with heaven and earth. It was like a sword god had descended. Each time the sword light jumped, it was along with the heaven path. Heaven and man connection? Juyin's pupils constricted and he comprehended something. Was this a true will, a huge fighting spirit, entering a state of comprehension? He looked towards Zhong Shou's eyes. As expected, there were some changes. The talismans and bloodline legacy that he couldn't be more familiar with had some heaven path mysteries. Juyin's eyes squinted. Once again, an energy wheel gathered in front of him. However, it was still sliced into pieces by that blood sword. Decisive and clean, he didn't hesitate at all. Juyin's lips curled up coldly as he continued. However, it condensed once more and shattered once more. Where the sword light landed, it was like an indestructible god sword, unstoppable and unstoppable. It did so 10 times in a row, breaking the last 100-feet wheel. Then, Zhong Shou's sword swept and sliced towards Juyin's head. Juyin frowned and took a step back in the end. Then, he looked down with a complicated expression. He actually lost. At this moment, Zhong Shou had stepped into the abyss gate once more. At this moment, Zhong Shou's extremely focused mind was finally distracted. At the same time, he retreated from the comprehension of heaven's connection. However, he didn't feel any regret. Instead, his face was filled with joy from the bottom of his heart. He won. In 10 days, he racked his brains and finally managed to walk into the abyss gate. Then, his expression turned serious as he looked coldly at Juyin. He did win, but would this extreme flame saint venerable keep his promise? Even Zhong Shou's life was in his hands. Much less this small promise? Such a feeling was really unbearable. His desire to reach the pinnacle of the sword path became even more firm. Because he was too worried, he momentarily forgot about the intense pain in his eyes and the beating of his heart that was getting more and more intense. At this moment, the millions of runes in his eyes were slowly gathering into one. At that moment, all the black mist and death energy around the abyss gate started to burn. They were all burning fiercely and gradually disappearing. Jueyu didn't neglect it. He had been looking at Zhong Shou's eyes from start to finish. Then, he nodded his head expressionlessly. You have won today, Zhong Shoxin relaxed slightly. Then, he heard Jueyu mocking once more. However, I am going to go back on my words. My promise is invalid. His gaze was mocking like he was saying that even if he didn't keep his promise, You are just an ant, what can you do? Zhong Shou instantly felt his brain explode, the veins on his forehead popping out. His eyes opened wide and then constricted. The millions of runes in his eyes swiftly merged into one at a shocking speed. Both eyes were blood-colored like beautiful jade. Looking closely, there seemed to be two black and white whirlpools spinning within. It was devilish and extremely beautiful. Julian instantly felt something. He felt that the tens of thousands of miles of Nether Jail world was shaking. He felt his mind go blank like he had fallen into a world filled with fire. Then, he was shocked. Looking at the situation, it was obvious that something was about to happen. He was just a step away from completing it. However, before it was completed, there was already such an ability? It caused his end-realm spiritual sense to nearly fall into an illusion that he couldn't recover from. His main body seemed to have sensed something too. A light flew through the air and entered Julian's body. Then, he pointed out with a finger. It was still light and powerless. However, it hit Zhong Shou's brow, causing him to faint once more. Carrying the teen in his hand, Julian couldn't help but shake his head. Then, he felt a clear water-like gaze look over. Chapter 945. The world-burning flame exploded out, and in just an instant, it burned the hundreds of miles of black mist. Everything here was opened up and one could see with their eyes. There was no way to stop one's spiritual sense. The source of the gaze was Lu Hanyan, who was under the monster tree. Her eyes were filled with shock and worry. Julian smiled and with a flash, he was beside the monster tree. He casually waved his sleeves and the vines that were tightly binding Lu Hanyan instantly broke apart. All the restrictions along with the tree were turned to dust. Julian felt a headache as he looked at Zhong Shou in his hand. Thinking about it, he tossed him to the side like he was tossing trash. Lu Hanyan was shocked as to why Julian would destroy the restrictions. When she saw the situation, she had no time to worry about herself. Her body flashed and she caught Zhong Shou's body. Then, she looked at Julian with annoyance. Saint Venerable, why are you doing this? What is the meaning of this? What else can it mean? Hanyan, you are lucky and gave birth to a good son. You have done well. The punishment hall was too careless when they punished you. A few days ago, Yen Yuan and I decided to exempt you from the remaining punishment. Julian broke into a laugh and stood with his hands behind his back. You have already served 20 years in this 8th layer. I will naturally compensate you. I only have one thing to ask you. Do you have any complaints about being locked up here? Lu Hanyan's brow furrowed. She was asking Julian why he treated Zhong Shou like that. He obviously placed a lot of importance on him and even didn't care about the jade bone and spiritual marrow. However, he still tortured him like that. When she heard the latter half, she couldn't help but be moved. She was lucky and gave birth to a good son? What did that mean? The remaining 20 years of punishment were exempted just like that? The person in front of her was an end-realm Saint Venerable, one of the most respected people in the Lu family. Naturally, he wouldn't speak carelessly. However, why was that? Hearing his tone, it seemed like she was able to escape because of Shou. Then, there was a period of silence. To ask her if she had any complaints about the Lu family was really tough to answer. Indeed, there was. Back then, he had never thought that there would be such consequences. At that time, he was too young and naive. He thought that it was nothing more than a normal punishment. Never would he have thought that the result would be the joint attack of several monarchs and elders. He did hate him when he was trapped in the death jail. However, over the past few decades, he had become indifferent to it. The only person she felt sorry for was her grandfather. The current sky-burning Saint Emperor Julian's smile widened. About 1,000 years ago, my Lu clan obtained a top-tier divine treasure. Although it didn't have the ability to split open the heavens and allow people to fuse with the Tao and achieve true reality, however, using the ability of this treasure, As long as Saint Realm cultivators had some ability, they could easily step into End Realm. For this item, my Lu family fought openly and secretly within the sky-burning Holy Dynasty for several generations. It wasn't until 30 years ago that we came to a conclusion. The three of us gradually became fond of your grandfather. Lu Hanyan's body trembled slightly, and she could not help but straighten her back. She stared at Julian in disbelief. However, there was a sudden change. There was the matter of you having a relationship with the Cloud World Mixed Fox bloodline. At that time, country ruler Xianhua controlled the sky-burning punishment hall and was the first to cause problems. He said that your grandfather only had you as his only descendant and that he had connections with other races and that his bloodline wasn't pure. If he used the power of the God Treasure to enter End Realm, then it wouldn't help our entire sky-burning Lu family bloodline. When this person started to cause trouble, 70% of the Saint Hall's country rulers and elders followed behind him. Everyone was furious, and even Saint Venerables like us had to follow his wishes in case the Lu family fell apart. Lu Hanyan's face alternated between green and white. She only knew that the situation of being sent to the 9 extreme death jail was a little weird. However, she didn't know that there was such a shocking matter within. This matter involved the battle for the End Realm position, so naturally, they would fight to the death. It was already fortunate that the sky-burning Saint Emperor was able to escape unscathed. At that time, Beiwu had two choices. Before he reached End Realm, he would take in another concubine and use some yang essence to give birth to another child. He would just push back the time he stepped into End Realm by a few hundred years. However, your grandfather and your grandmother had always been in harmony with each other, and their relationship was very deep. Neither of them had ever considered this. There was another way, which was to force you to give up on that kid and marry someone else. Lu Hanyan gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Drops of fresh blood dripped from her hands. Lu Beiwu was the name of her grandfather, the current sky-burning Saint Emperor. She was really clear that from start to finish, the sky-burning Saint Emperor didn't force her at all. He was just like a giant tree that stood there quietly to block the rain for her. That grandfather of yours was a rather prideful person. At that time, he used the power in his hands to exchange for the support of a few elders to protect your life. Then, he went into secluded meditation and didn't ask about the Saint Dynasty matters. He backed out of the battle for the God Treasure. Looking at his intentions, he didn't want to use external items to enter the End Realm. When he said this, Julian paused. Speaking of which, what happened that year was just too much of a coincidence. Thinking about it, there might have been some people who did things in the dark. Unfortunately, Beiwu, out of all the descendants, only he was the one I paid the most attention to. Lu Hanyan's eyes were filled with shock. Speaking of which, her relationship with Zhong Weiran was just a premeditated scheme? Then she shook her head firmly. She had deep feelings for Weiran. Weiran treated her the same way. No matter whether or not the two of them had any other intentions when they met. These feelings weren't fake. She also felt weird. Why would Julian mention such secrets in front of her for no reason? Then, she saw Julian give out a weird smile. At this moment, Beiwu shouldn't be in a good situation. He hasn't dealt with Saint Dynasty matters for decades and should have given up the Saint Emperor position. However, because the few of them still haven't decided on a winner, this matter has been dragging on. However, during these 20 years, although the Saint Dynasty battles have continued, there are people who want to change the Saint Emperor position. Your grandfather had many enemies in his life, and was still able to threaten them when he was the emperor. Once he was no longer in his position, revenge was sure to follow. With his ability, even if he didn't fear it, he would be disturbed. He might not be able to have peace and prepare for the End Realm tribulation. Then, let me ask you one more time. Are you willing to return to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty and help your grandfather? This matter is up to you and is also your own matter. As for what happens, it is up to you. That voice seemed to carry a magical power that went straight into Lu Hanyan's mind. Her eyes were filled with shock for a moment before she regained her calmness. 20 years ago, I implicated grandfather. Now, I can't be such a heartless and unfilial person. She was filled with melancholy. Originally, she wanted to search for her kid after she got out of jail. However, it was okay if she didn't know about her grandfather's situation. Since she knew about it now, how could she not care about herself? When Julian heard this, he laughed out loud, shaking 3,000 miles of the sky. He didn't hide his delight at all. Lu Hanyan was stunned. She didn't understand why Julian was like that. However, she heard that this Saint Venerable's personality was really weird and unpredictable. She had an idea. Julian mentioned her kid, so did he know where Shou was? She was released and Julian's words had something to do with Zhong Shou? However, Julian did not allow her to think any further. He directly used his will to grab Lu Hanyan's body. Since that is the case, then let's go. Coincidentally, I need to leave this 9 extreme death jail to avoid trouble, so I will send you back to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. However, Lu Hanyan didn't follow what he wanted. She struggled and hugged Zhong Shou, not letting go. Julian knew what she was thinking about. He flicked his finger and 3 drops of jade liquid flew towards Zhong Shou, who was still unconscious. There is no need to bring this kid away. This kid had other reasons to stay in the death prison for a few more days. You don't have to worry. I love him like a treasure, 1,000 times more than you. I won't let him get hurt here. Can you be at ease now? His eyes were filled with mocking intent, causing Lu Hanyan's face to turn red. She followed his instructions and placed Zhong Shou down. This time, Zhong Shou's injuries weren't heavy. However, Julian was willing to use 3 drops of jade bone spirit returning marrow to heal him. It seemed like he really loved him a lot. With these 3 drops entering his body, Zhong Shou would probably be able to wake up in just a moment. After spending 10 days with him, Lu Hanyan knew that he had a few strong protector beasts protecting him, and that he was safe. How could the sky-burning Lu family toss such a talented person here and not bother about him? She calmed down and followed Julian to leave the nether jail world. When the scenes in front of her changed and she stood in the star-fire dust formation, Lu Hanyan felt a sense of relief. She felt that the bone-scraping and soul-eating pain that was tormenting her had all disappeared. She felt like a huge burden had been lifted off her shoulders. All of a sudden, she felt a little uncomfortable. She looked forward with a complicated expression. She was delighted and eager, but also a little melancholy. Julian didn't care so much, bringing her and continuing to cross the air. Then, he stood quietly in the void, as if he was waiting for something. Lu Hanyan was filled with doubts, but she didn't dare to ask. A moment later, a flame suddenly appeared behind Julian and let out a bell-like chuckle. That person is here. 10 days, so punctual. Lu Hanyan was confused. That person, who was that person? Julian's lips curled up in a mocking manner. As for the girl whose name was unknown, her eyes were filled with schadenfreude and pity. Moments later, a green-colored person stepped over from the distance. It was Tianqing Venerable. Looking at his appearance, Lu Hanyan was enlightened. He was one of the Saint Realm elders of the Lu family who was in charge of the death jail. What she didn't understand was why Julian and the teen had such an expression. Lu Tianqing walked over with a jade box in his hand. When he saw Lu Hanyan, he was also surprised. His eyes flashed with uneasiness and conjecture. Then, it returned back to normal and wasn't obvious at all. He walked in front of Julian and bowed, holding the jade box in front of him. I didn't disappoint the Holy Lord's trust, rushing here within 10 days. Chapter 946. I didn't let Saint Venerable down and rushed over within 10 days. While he spoke, Lu Tianqing's eyelids were slightly raised as he looked at Julian's expression. In the end, he was disappointed. Although this Saint Venerable was happy and furious, he didn't show it on his face. However, if one wanted to use that to deduce what he was thinking, it would be impossible. Thank you for your hard work. You didn't waste my time. Julian waved his sleeves and took the box. He opened it and smiled in satisfaction before tossing it into the hands of the girl in the red shirt. At this moment, Lu Tianqing glanced at Lu Hanyan. Saint Venerable, I remember that this girl is 20 years away from the end of her sentence. He really didn't understand why Julian would release her and bring her out of the jail. Was it because... These words were both out of curiosity and also to test. When Julian heard this, he laughed coldly. Why? Could it be that this old man can't release a mere 20 years of imprisonment? Do I have to report such a small matter to you? Lu Tianqing's figure shuddered slightly. He could feel his soul being crushed into pieces. Being with an End Realm Saint Venerable was the only thing he hated and felt really uneasy about. At this moment, he could only bow in fear. Naturally, I don't dare. That's good. Julian laughed and retracted the soul suppression. He then asked flatly, Then, during these 10 days, have you thought it through? If you still know what is good for you, then you can forget about your junior's marriage. Help me tell Xianhua that I am already a little impatient with what he has done in recent years. Lu Tianqing could only hear a dull thud in his mind. This Saint Venerable had a reason for sending him to get the Kangwu Saint fruit. Was he impatient with country ruler Xianhua because he colluded with outsiders and became friends with other race Saint Venerables? He felt a sense of relief in his chest. He had already guessed what the extreme flame Saint Venerable was planning. Speaking of which, Lu Tianqing glanced at Lu Hanyan from the corner of his eyes. He brought her out of the jail to help the sky-burning Saint Emperor who had been in secluded meditation for so long? Thinking about it for a moment, Lu Tianqing laughed coldly. He didn't have such plans and most probably just wanted to use this to warn Xianhua. Otherwise, he would have brought Zhong Shou along with him. This Saint Venerable had really ignored the affairs of the world for too long. He was actually stupid enough to use Liu Beiwu as a bargaining chip. 20 years ago, the Liu clan had a grudge with the Saint Emperor. There were more than 60 or 70 Saint Realm elders in the clan, which was 70% of the total. If this person made a comeback, who wouldn't be worried about the Saint Emperor's revenge? At that time, it would not only be a matter of Xianhua alone. The other people who were enemies of country master Xianhua would not be able to escape from this matter. Did this Saint Venerable really think that the Liu family was still in an era where the 3 End Realms working together could control everything? The 8 country rulers all had the ability to go up against End Realm experts. Not mentioning Yenyuan Saint Venerable, the other Saint Venerable, the Liu family ancestor, might not agree with what Julian did. Then, my daughter's marriage. Is that why the extreme flame Saint Master is dissatisfied with me? No wonder from then on, he felt that Julian's words and actions were a little weird. He was in charge of the death jail and under his rule, he actually married someone he was unhappy with. Naturally, this Saint Venerable was unhappy. At this moment, everything was clear and that uneasiness and annoyance retreated. He hesitated and a moment later, he shook his head. Since the marriage has been decided, how can we go against it so easily? I will definitely pass your words to country master Xianhua. Although this was a little risky, what he wanted was to increase his lifespan. It was best if his cultivation could improve. Julian couldn't give him all of this but Xianhua could. Moreover, if he died, he would need someone to take care of the children and grandchildren he left behind. Extreme Flame Saint Venerable didn't do much, and Yenyuan Saint Venerable also slowly left the Saint dynasty. Because of Lu Hanyan and the Red Hummingbird matter, there were many grievances between them. On the contrary, Xuanhua's bloodline was really strong and he was undoubtedly the top person in the Saint dynasty. Even if he couldn't become the Saint Emperor, the next Saint Emperor would definitely be in his hands. The three country rulers worked together, and also had End-Realm Saint Venerables helping. To him, they were in an undefeatable position. Even if Lu Hanyan's case was overturned, it wouldn't affect their foundations. Moreover, he and Xian Hua had interests connected and they were deeply connected, so how could they tear them apart? There were many things that Lu Tianqing would not be able to recover from once they were exposed. At this moment, he could only take the risk. Julian's expression changed and his eyes instantly sunk as he looked coldly at Lu Tianqing. He smiled like he wasn't smiling and killing intent exploded out, but he was suppressing it. A moment later, he opened his mouth and his tone was as calm as ice. Lu Hanyan spent 24 years in the nether jail and was pecked by the red hummingbird. Her son is also serving time in the death jail. That can make up for her sins. When he said this, he said with deep meaning, "As for you, you didn't take good care of the death jail and messed with the law. I will inform the Saint Dynasty to remove you from your position as death jail guardian. You can head to the punishment hall to accept your punishment." Lu Tianqing listened on quietly. His expression was really calm and a mocking expression appeared in his eyes. This Saint Venerable was still worried and didn't immediately kill Lu Tianqing on the spot. It seemed like it wasn't a lie that country ruler Xian Hua had an End-Realm helper. They were far from falling out. Although Julian was hostile, he didn't want to offend them. Although Julian was hostile, Xuanhua's methods were also amazing, and he might be able to make this Saint Venerable change his mind. If the punishment hall accepted the punishment, even if the punishment was heavy, it wouldn't affect him at all. Xianhua had already informed him, and he would definitely have a way to deal with it. The current situation seemed dangerous, but it was actually safe. Lu Hanyan's body shook and she looked towards Julian in shock. His son was serving time in the death jail? What was the meaning of this sentence? Her chest was filled with anxiousness and her heart was pounding. She didn't even think and directly asked, "What does Saint Venerable mean by saying that Hanyan's son is in the death jail?" Julian laughed and didn't reply. Lu Tianqing's brow rose up and then he smiled and shook his head. "Princess Hanyan, don't you know? Speaking of which, you met him 10 days ago. Who knows what happened during the 10 days that I left?" The moment he said this, Lu Hanyan felt dizzy and then she came back to her senses. Like the evening drum and morning bell, it caused the knowledge barrier to collapse. "That's right. That child is my Hanyan's son. He also told me that he is called Zong Shou. Why didn't she notice at that time? That kid that Julian paid so much attention to, not hesitating to use the jade bone spirit returning marrow to nurture his body. He was just a step away from awakening the Lu family bloodline. The teen who nearly used the world-burning flame to burn the entire nether jail world was her shower? She first didn't dare to believe it. That child of hers had actually stepped into the immortal realm before the age of 30? He even charged into the 8th layer of the death jail alone to find her? She thought back to how Zong Shou tried to charge into the 9-layer abyss gate during these 10 days. Each time he returned covered in injuries, but he didn't give up. In the end, he even decided to fight to the death. He was suffering from the forbidden technique, and was tortured by the blood spirit curse power, but he wasn't willing to give up. So, he went through so much trouble for her? Lu Hanyan couldn't help but grit her teeth. The emotions in her chest were indescribable. She was surprised and nearly crushed by this huge sense of happiness. She only felt that the torture she went through these 20 years wasn't much. For this kid, even if she was trapped for hundreds or thousands of years, she was willing. She was also filled with rage. Shou didn't care about his life at all. Even if she died, she wasn't willing to see her kid in such pain. She stared furiously at Julian. Although she could see it, she couldn't know. Only this Julian Saint Venerable had such methods. She also understood that today's matter was indeed caused by her child. Poor Shou was going to be dragged into the sky burning Lu family quagmire, and couldn't break free. Julian seemed to have a plan. As for Lu Tianqing, he didn't know anything about Zhong Shou awakening the Lu family peak bloodline and his world-burning blood eyes. Thinking back to when Juyin left, he said that he wanted to leave the death jail to avoid calamity. She instantly understood. The laws in the 9 extreme death jail were firm, but only the sky-burning flame wasn't restricted. Instead, it was greatly strengthened. It had the ability to restrict the various daos and laws. As for the world-burning flame, its grade was even higher. Once it exploded out, it would definitely burn the 9 jail world. Who knows what happened to the other 8 jades? The death jail world would most probably be destroyed. If the Lu family didn't want this rare chance to evolve their bloodline, they wouldn't stop. Not only would they not be able to suppress it, but they would also be happy to see it. Then, this Tianqing venerable who guarded the death jail stunned. Lu Hanyan still didn't dare to believe her conjecture. However, the schadenfreude in the girl's eyes and Juyin's mocking expression didn't seem fake. You talk too much. Juyin waved his sleeves unhappily. You can leave now. Don't regret your choice in the future. Lu Tianqing's eyes were cold and mocking. He said that it was a choice, but where did he have the ability to choose? He didn't say anything more, bowing once more towards Juyin and saying, Saint Venerable, please forgive me. Then, he continued to step into the air towards the 9 extreme death jail. Before Juyin informed the Saint Dynasty to remove him from his post. He was still the death jail guardian and had the role of a guard. However, just as he was a few steps away, he heard Juyin's voice spread over. Zhong Shou, help me take care of this kid. I hope that he is safe in the death jail and his life is not in danger. Lu Tianqing's body paused, his brow furrowed as he entered deep thought. Then, he shook his head. He had expected all of this. The only thing he didn't expect was that Xian Huayan's act of inviting Saint Venerables would anger this extreme flame Saint Venerable. Not only did he not kill Zhong Shou and Hanyan, but he also gave Liu Beiwu a chance to turn the situation around. His heart calmed down. Although this matter didn't go as he wished, it was still solved. Without any hesitation, he broke open the void and stepped into the 8th layer of the 9 extreme death jail. The moment he entered the jail, Lu Tianqing was startled. Chapter 947. The sky of Nether Jail was always a deathly gray color. There was also a layer of dark clouds that never dissipated which covered the sky. The entire world was as dark as night during the day. Death energy spread about, it was really dark and sinister. However, at this moment, one couldn't see the black cloud layer in the sky. The sky was clear and the blazing sun hung high up in the sky. One couldn't sense much energy around. How did this happen? What kind of unforeseen event happened in the 10 days that he was gone? Lu Tianqing was startled for a moment before he came back to his senses. He instinctively looked in the direction of Nether Jail. That formless god-demon was no longer there, nowhere to be seen. The black mist that spread hundreds of miles was also nowhere to be seen. This made him even more confused. With a flash, Lu Tianqing was beside the abyss gate. Then, he looked around in deep thought. This place seemed to have been burned by some kind of flame, turning hundreds of miles around into a white land. The ground beneath his feet was formed from magma. It actually melted the tens of thousands of feet underground. Sensing carefully, Lu Tianqing was even more shocked. He only felt that the laws of this region and the restrictions of the death jail were loosening. It seemed like not long ago, it was struck by a huge external force. Is it really Juyin? If a Saint Venerable acted, naturally it wouldn't be difficult. However, why did this old ancestor Juyin do that? He couldn't have been bored. In the end, Lu Tianqing's eyes landed on Zhong Shou, who was lying beside a demon tree a few hundred miles away. After not meeting for 10 days, the feeling that this kid gave him was a little different. His aura was retracted, it was perfect and didn't leak out. However, for some reason, it gave one a violent feeling. It made one's heart jump and feel uneasy. Lu Tianqing frowned, teleporting and instantly flashing over. He had a complicated expression as he looked at the teen under the tree. Then, Zhong Shou's eyelids twitched like he was about to open his eyes. He woke up? The moment such a thought flashed across Lu Tianqing's mind, he was attracted by Zhong Shou's eyes. Only to see that his eyes were blood red. Like blood jade, extremely pure and without any impurities. His eyes were really deep, causing his spiritual sense to nearly sink in. What a pair of bewitching eyes! Lu Tianqing took a deep breath to calm himself down, following which he felt weird. Why did Zhong Shou's eyes become like that? He remembered that before he left, it had not been like this. That pair of blood-red eyes seemed familiar. He only felt the blood and qi in his body surging. He even had the urge to kowtow and submit in front of this youth. His heart pounded like a drum. His eyes also felt slightly itchy. But why was that? While Lu Tianqing was deep in thought, Zhong Shou gradually regained consciousness. His dazed eyes regained their focus. The intense pain in his eyes had actually disappeared. His eyes were able to see again. The barrier that had blocked the blood spirit curse for a long time also disappeared. However, all of a sudden, he couldn't sense anything wrong with his eyes. It was just that he could see things more clearly than before. Within 100 miles, the dust particles and even the internal structure. There was no need to infuse magic power into his eyes to see it clearly. He could even sense all the spiritual energy changes around. However, at this moment, what Zhong Shou cared about the most wasn't his eyes. It was Juyin and the Abyss Gate that entered the 9th layer. Looking out, the Abyss Gate was still there, but Juyin was nowhere to be seen. He instinctively looked towards the demon tree, only to see that the girl whose name he couldn't remember was gone. There was no one under the tree. Zhong Shou instantly felt his heart empty, like someone had dug out a piece of it, making him feel really uncomfortable. Apart from feeling disappointed, he was also worried. Who knew where that girl went and how was she now? Didn't she say that she would wait here for 20 years before leaving the death jail? Why was she nowhere to be seen? Checking his body, his meridians, body, and bloodline were all perfect as usual. Even his physical body strength seemed to have become much stronger. Zhong Shou shook his head and his eyes landed on the red-robed old man opposite him. Saint Realm. Another expert that he couldn't go up against. Actually, to him, Saint Realm and End Realm were the same, there was no difference. With just one finger, they could easily crush him. Who are you? He wasn't interested in this person's identity. He just wanted to know whether or not this person would stop him from entering the death jail. Lu Tianqing. Speaking of which, I am your ancestor. Lu Tianqing paused. Just looking at Zhong Shou's cold gaze, he knew that this kid had no respect for the so-called Lu family elders. Lu Tianqing wasn't angry but laughed instead. This kid's attitude was what he wanted. You're the one behind all of this? Juyin had already left and the only one he could ask was this teen. Zhong Shou looked around when he heard this. He was also shocked by the changes here. In the end, he shook his head at a loss. Me and Juyin Saint Venerable. He roughly remembered everything that happened before he fainted. The destruction of the black fog here seemed to have something to do with him. However, how could Zhong Shou have such ability? It wasn't wrong to say that he and Juyin Saint Venerable worked together. Lu Tianqing understood. Although he didn't know the exact situation, as expected, it was done by Juyin Saint Venerable. Naturally, he neglected Zhong Shou. A junior who just entered Celestial Realm, no matter how talented he was, he needed time to accumulate such ability. However, thinking about this kid's talent, he felt terrified. As long as this teen didn't die, sooner or later, he would climb up and stand at the peak. He was a huge problem. Killing intent rose up, but when he thought about Juyin's words, he suppressed it. Zhong Shou didn't sense anything and hesitated. Julian Saint Venerable and I have an agreement that if I can beat his essence blood incarnation, then I will forgive him. My mother can be absolved of her crime, and be exempted from the remaining punishment. Julian had already said that he wanted to go back on his words, but Zhong Shou still had hope. An End Realm Saint Venerable couldn't go back on his words and not care about his face. Even if that was the case, he would announce it and let everyone know how shameless Julian was. However, when he said this, Lu Tianqing's eyes were stunned. Beating Julian's essence blood incarnation and Lu Hanyan would be punished? Was that true? Hearing Zhong Shou's words, he actually won? An End Realm Venerable, even a drop of essence blood was a 10,000th of his strength. It was comparable to an initial God Realm cultivator, with his tens of thousands of years of attainments in the martial path. How could he lose? Even if they were of the same grade, dozens of God Realm Venerables working together might not be his match. However, what if it was really as the teen said? Then, what would happen? Terrifying. A deep layer of fear spread throughout Lu Tianqing's body. His eyes were filled with fear. If he gave the person in front of him a few hundred more years, no one in the entire Lu family would be able to stop him. Country ruler Xuanhua's position seemed stable, but in front of this kid, he was like a city made of sand that would fall with one push. At this moment, he was far weaker than them, but his future prospects were immeasurable. All of a sudden, Lu Tianqing felt his chest turn extremely cold. The extreme flame Saint Venerable sent him away for 10 days to test the limits of Zhong Shou's potential. He probably knew that this kid's talent was hard to come by, which was why he wanted to mend the relationship with the sky-burning Saint Emperor. At this moment, he was probably still hesitating. On one side, he controlled a small half of the Lu family and had the ability to split up the sky-burning Lu family. On the other side, he had unlimited potential, but whether or not he would be able to enter the Saint Realm was still hard to predict. All of a sudden, the killing intent rose up once more. There was a strong and indescribable impulse to destroy this young man. Even if Julian said it, it was tough to suppress it. Zhong Shoxin sensed something and frowned. Who knows if it was because of the bloodline mutation, but he was really sensitive to the thoughts of others. Each time the person in front of him spoke, he could pretty much predict a portion of what he was thinking. He already had killing intent towards him twice, each time deeper than the last. His blood eyes flashed and he was really wary. Lu Tianqing smiled. Your mother? Is it Lu Hanyan? Not long ago, she was trapped under this tree. You should have seen her a few times here. Didn't the extreme flame Saint Venerable keep his promise? That really is the case. Not long ago, the extreme flame Saint Venerable moved your mother to the 9th layer. He said that she contacted outsiders to try to escape. He didn't know what he was thinking, but since Lu Yunj said that he wanted this Zhong Shou to be tortured to death, then he would follow his orders. Then, according to what he said, it would be best if this kid could die with grievances. Whilst he spoke, he slapped out a golden flying shuttle which sped into the distance. The Saint Dynasty's sound transmission formation wasn't the only way to contact Xianhua. This flying shuttle could instantly spread to billions of worlds. He only had one in his hand. He would definitely have to pay a huge price for today's matter. However, Xianhua had to go all out for him. Zhong Shou was still in a daze, like he was still in shock. Lu Tianqing laughed coldly when he saw that. This was within his expectations. He knew that the woman was actually his mother. He risked his life to search for her, but in the end, he couldn't recognize her. Anyone would have such an expression. Lu Tianqing raised his hand and a small bug that was yellow, purple, and green appeared in his hand. It was what Lu Yunj mentioned, the 3 spirits' corpse asking Gu. However, he felt that it wasn't appropriate and kept it. He took out another item and held it in his hand. It was a transparent bug shadow that only showed signs of itself when Lu Tianqing injected true qi in. Although it could make one feel extreme pain and cause one's vital energy to disappear, it was tough to hide from others. This invisible god swallowing silk was a natural variant from the 9 extreme death jail, and was a type of goo. Although it was slow, it was invisible and invisible. Even end-realm saint venerables wouldn't be able to sense it. After a period of time, one would be able to get rid of suspicion. After a slight hesitation, Lu Tianqing inserted a few seals into it. Although he was always hesitant and was famous for being slippery, he knew when to give up. Although the price of killing this kid was huge, he could only do so. If he dragged this out, things would only change. He might as well end the extreme flame Saint Venerable's hopes right from the start. With a thought, the invisible god swallowing silk turned into a silver thread that pierced right at Zhong Shou's brain. However, at this moment, Lu Tianqing's expression changed. He felt a blazing flame erupt from Zhong Shou's body. Scarlet flames spread out in an instant. Lu Tianqing was caught off guard and half of his body's energy was burned away. He was stunned and then his face turned ashen white. This was obviously the world-burning flame. How was that possible? Chapter 948. At this moment, Zhong Shou only felt dizzy and heavy in his mind. When Lu Tianqing said those words, the barriers in his mind were broken. Everything that happened during those 10 days surged into his mind. Mother, Lu Hanyan, so, she was right in front of him. She took care of him during those 10 days, treating his injuries and worrying for him. Zhong Shou wasn't furious right away. Instead, he felt an indescribable joy and warmth in his chest. He had seen her long ago. So, it was her. How great! No wonder he couldn't bear to part with her when they were so close. After such a thought, the last few words from Lu Tianqing flashed across his mind. His mother was sent to the 9th layer by Lu Jian? She contacted outsiders to try to escape? Was it because of him? Then, he came back to his senses. No. If Julian wanted to do that, he wouldn't have spent so much effort. For some reason, his thoughts were as clear as a mirror. Every time the blood in his body started to pulse, he could vaguely see Lu Tianqing's thoughts. Although he knew that this person's words weren't true and that he had ulterior motives, Zhong Shou still felt that the rage in his heart couldn't be vented. Extremely fierce and violent thoughts gathered in his chest. Like a sword stabbing deep into his heart. Demon tree binding. Absorbing true essence and vital energy. The death jail forbidden technique caused even if one became a piece of trash with no thoughts, one would still have to suffer from that bone-piercing pain. The death energy caused his mother to spend 10 years of her lifespan in this death jail for a year. There were also those red fang birds, millions of beasts that pecked and ate her flesh and blood. The pain was no less than that of the death jail forbidden technique, no different from being cut into pieces. She was just sleeping with someone from the outside race. To the Lu family, even if she was guilty, she shouldn't be punished in such a cruel manner. How dare they do that? How dare they do that? Something seemed to explode in his mind. Zhong Shou's mind nearly went out of control. That pair of blood-colored eyes also exploded with light. Countless runes flashed once again. They were colorful and dazzling to the eyes. Clumps of crimson flames spread out with a loud boom, instantly covering 1,000 miles. Using the void as carbon, he burned the world. The depths of his eyes regained some clarity. Zhong Shou looked in front of him again, and saw a thin silver line hanging in front of him. It was originally invisible and formless, but it was forced out by the red flames. It seemed to be controlled by someone, but at the same time, it was afraid of something. It coiled around 7 chi in front of his forehead, not daring to get any closer. Goo worm? Slightly confused, Zhong Shouxin suddenly came to his senses. Not only was it a goo, it was fatal. Did he want to take Zhong Shou's life? Did he want him dead? His heart became more and more furious. A blood light flashed in his eyes, like a black and white whirlpool appeared in the depths of his eyes. Then, the body of the invisible goo was forcibly twisted by an enormous force, and was forcibly twisted into a fried dough twist. Die. With a thought from Zhong Shou, the invisible goo exploded. Pieces of flesh and blood scattered in all directions. Then, he was burned to ashes by the crimson flames. At this moment, Lu Tianqing's face was twisted and his hands were trembling. His eyes were in a daze as he looked at the pair of red eyes opposite him. World-burning flame? World-burning blood eye? How is that possible? That's impossible, Lu Tianqing muttered under his breath. His eyes narrowed abruptly. No, it wasn't just the world-burning blood eye. It also merged with others. Several bloodline powers no weaker than the sky-burning Lu family were merged into it. Could it be that he was hallucinating? The mutation wasn't complete, but just the eye light was able to destroy the god-swallowing thread that was comparable to an initial god realm cultivator. How was this just the Lu family's world-burning blood eye? However, there was one thing that was without a doubt. The kid in front of him had the top bloodline of their sky-burning Lu family. He could only look up to him, and was only weaker than a few end-realm saint venerables. He was the only pure blood in the Lu family. His heart was filled with endless fear and confusion. How was this possible? Wasn't Zhong Shou's father from the seven-tailed fox race? That year, he personally made the arrangement. That Zhong Weiran was indeed an exceptional person, otherwise, Lu Hanyan wouldn't have fallen in love with him and given up everything. However, it was also true that this person's bloodline had deteriorated. Why was this Zhong Shou able to create the world-burning blood that their Lu family hadn't seen in a long time? Dual meridian body, remnant soul and body, it was already a miracle for him to be able to cultivate to such a realm. Why did this kid have the world-burning eye? Why did the heavens treat him so well? After dealing with that bug, Zhong Shou turned his gaze towards Lu Tianqing. Each time his bloodline moved, he would be able to obtain some information from his soul. This was why he was able to easily identify the owner of the invisible god-swallowing thread. 20 years ago, he was the one who schemed against his mother? He didn't know the exact reason, but it didn't stop the rage in Zhong Shaoxin's heart. At this moment, even if he used up all the water in the world, he wouldn't be able to extinguish the rage in his chest. The light in his eyes changed once more and locked onto Lu Tianqing. Millions of runes spread out from his eyes and gathered at extreme speed. This person had to die too. Lu Tianqing instantly sensed it, only feeling a flood-like killing intent slashing into his soul like a blade. There was also an aura pressing down on his body. His limbs were all twisted and pulled by a power. He was stunned at first and then came back to his senses. Not only did this kid want to kill him, he also wanted him to kneel down in front of him. At first, he found it amusing. This Zhong Shou really didn't know his place. With just this celestial realm world-burning blood eye, did he want to kill a saint venerable like him? However, Lu Tianqing's expression changed immediately. His face turned pale. This kid couldn't do anything to him, but if he wanted to, he would definitely want to take his life. If that was the case, then half of the elders in the sky-burning Saint dynasty would be willing to help him, either to resolve grievances or to form a good relationship with this future saint venerable who was destined to be the Lu family. He was the top prince of the sky-burning Saint dynasty, the sky-burning Saint Emperor dozens of years later. With his celestial realm body and grasping the world-burning blood eye, he wouldn't be unable to take the bloodline power and would die early. For this person, what was Lu Tianqing? He was just a saint realm cultivator whose combat strength was at the bottom. Young master, I didn't want that to happen. I was forced by someone, it was that Xianhua. His heart was filled with fear and he slowly panicked. He didn't pay attention to controlling his body and was pressed down by a power, causing his body to shrink down. He knelt down on one knee in front of Zhong Shou. That power came from his bloodline and wasn't strong at all. However, there was an irresistible majesty that made him feel fearful and fearful, like he was born above him and looked down on him. His chi and blood were also boiling in his body. His limbs and bones, the sky-burning blood was being refined and purified once more. This was the bloodline retracing which had already benefited his body. However, at this moment, Lu Tianqing didn't feel any joy at all. He only felt that each part of his body was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. Xianhua tempted me, I couldn't control my body and my mind was blinded. Young master, please show mercy. Halfway through his words, Lu Tianqing was startled. How did this happen? Why did he think about begging Zhongsho? After all, he was a saint realm venerable, where was his dignity? Wouldn't he be a joke if he begged for pity from a backup? He bit the tip of his tongue. Under the intense pain, Lu Tianqing felt the chaotic thoughts and fear in his heart recede like a wave. As expected, it was an illusionary technique that directly attacked the mind. While he was shocked and at a loss, Zhongsho's blood eye unknowingly affected his mind. That's right. Zhongsho himself had the nine-tailed sky fox bloodline. It seemed like the illusionary technique ability was also merged into the blood eye ability. He became even more wary. However, if these words could obtain the forgiveness of the Crown Prince, then it was worth it. However, when he looked out, his chest sank once more. Samurai was looking down on him expressionlessly. There was only one meaning in his eyes. Die. Die. Die for me. A sharp killing intent filled his mind. Lu Tianqing was first disappointed and then he was furious. This kid actually dared to do that. But before he could do anything, he sensed something and looked around. However, apart from the red flames, there were numerous invisible flames burning in each space gap. It caused the source of heaven and earth to tremble. Many laws were collapsing. It caused the ground beneath his feet to tremble. What was he doing? Alright? How did he forget that the world-burning flame could burn the world? Although Zhongsho was only celestial realm, he had the top sky-burning bloodline. Once it exploded out, it was enough to totally destroy this nether jail. If it was more serious, it could even spread to the other 8 death jails. As a death jail guard, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. If it was any other time, then it was still okay. However, not long ago, he offended Juyan. The Lu family pure-blood Zhongzi in front of him, the top crown prince, hated him to the bone. If he attacked him for this crime, he wouldn't be able to escape death and would definitely die. Stop. Stop. Zhongsho, do you hear me? Stop right there. Stop. The vast power of a saint realm cultivator crazily spread out in the nether jail. He went all out to maintain this world, which was being smashed by the world-burning flame. At the start, Zhongsho didn't understand what was going on. Moments later, he noticed that there was something wrong with the surroundings. Like those 2 times before he fainted, when the pain in his eyes disappeared. Looking around, Zhongsho understood. So, this nether jail was on the verge of collapsing. It was also because of the rootless flames that came from him. Just now, how did Lu Tianqing call them? Right, it was the world-burning flame. Zhongsho laughed out loud, his voice filled with disdain. So what if this nether jail world was destroyed? What did it have to do with Zhongsho? This place tortured his mother for a full 20 years. He really wanted to personally destroy it. It was good that it was destroyed. The moment such a thought rose up, the unfairness in his chest, the vengeful energy all seemed to have a place to vent. The runes flashing in his blood eyes instantly condensed, forming into a really mysterious word. It was like water, like fire, like lightning, like illusionary, but it also contained the power of end. Vaguely, it was the word Tao. In the next instance, there were several cracking sounds. The entire nether jail world started to break apart like glass. World-burning eye formed. Chapter 949. The invisible flame spread across the entire space. To think that the fire has already reached here, outside of the void, the teen in red looked forward with a calm and judging gaze. This place was several worlds away from the 9 Extreme Death Jail. Strictly speaking, they weren't on the same space level. However, right in front of her eyes, she could see that the space barrier was twisted and broken. If it was like that here, then one could imagine what it would be like in the 9 Extreme Death Jail. It really is the world-burning blood eye, world-burning true flame. This bloodline power is so strong. The teen exclaimed. It sounded like she was praising. However, her tone was filled with melancholy. As she spoke, crimson flames began to burn all around her. She had the body of a phoenix, but the intensity of the flames exceeded the flames that she usually controlled. It was due to the bloodline retracing that was activated. Only then could she go up against the world-burning true flame. That Tianqing Venerable must be having a tough time holding on. However, he deserves it. Invisible God swallowing silk. He really is bold. You don't even care about what Julian said. After she said this, the teen in red noticed that the person beside her wasn't listening at all. She turned around and saw that there was a flame burning in Julian's hand. It jumped and changed, turning into the shape of a wheel that spun in his hand. On the wheel, there were many laws that cycled endlessly. At this moment, Julian's attention was focused on the wheel. A glow flashed in the teen's eyes, and then her lips curled up in disdain. Relying on the world-burning true flame, and using your heaven pivot reincarnation technique, you've finally mastered this divine ability. Should I congratulate you? Shouldn't I? Only then did Julian come back to his senses. When he heard this, his smile was extremely bright. Thanks to him, this time, I've saved 1,000 years of hard work. My bloodline is a step closer to that person. Maybe one day I will be able to break free from this world-burning blood. However, in terms of benefits, how is what you have gained today small? When he said this, the girl named Huang smiled with narrowed eyes. Even through a layer, the improvement of his natural flame ability was visible to the naked eye. Julian clenched his right fist and extinguished the flame wheel in his hand. It's not that he's brave, and it's not that he doesn't take my words to heart. It's just that he doesn't have a choice. I didn't think that Lu Tianqing would be the one behind what happened to Lu Hanyan 20 years ago. After doing so much for Xianhua, he was willing to leave the Saint Dynasty to guard the death jail. This person is really good at enduring. When she heard those words, a bright glow appeared in the eyes of the girl in red. Then, he asked curiously, then, are we just going to watch? Lu Tianqing was a decisive person and would not sit still and wait for death. At this point, they can do anything. Lu Hanyan clenched her teeth. He bore with the sky burning blood in his body, his pulse pulsed. It was continuously refined and purified. Countless bloodline seals were broken one by one. Zhong Shou had advanced to the peak bloodline of the sky-burning Lu family. At this moment, the one who benefited the most was Zhong Shou's mother. However, at this moment it was the hardest for her. However, when she heard the conversation between the two of them, she couldn't help but be slightly distracted. Her expression was one of loss. So, everything that happened 20 years ago wasn't a coincidence. The person behind the scenes was actually the death jail guardian, Tianqing Venerable. Her heart surged and then she started to worry for Zhong Shou. Hearing the words of the two of them, Zhong Shou was in a bad situation. Before this, Lu Tianqing was willing to take the risk of offending the extreme flame Saint Venerable to use the invisible god swallowing silk to plot against Zhong Shou. Then, at this moment, when he was in despair, he would most probably use the most extreme method. Even if he knew that Zhong Shou was extremely important to the sky-burning Lu family, Julian definitely wouldn't sit still and do nothing. However, if he didn't see the outcome, he wouldn't be at ease. Yen Yuan arrived long ago, so why do we need to worry about this matter? Julian laughed, His expression was indiscernible. Even if Yenyuan doesn't attack, there is still another end realm. Apart from that, there is also that person who is not bad. How can he allow Lu Tianqing to act so arrogantly? No matter what, this person will definitely die. The teen in the red shirt was stunned. She knew that Yenyuan Saint Venerable was nearby a few days ago. There was also that person who rushed over with Zhong Shou. Based on what Juyan said, he had End Realm strength but didn't have Saint Venerable strength. However, who was the last person that Juyan mentioned? Why didn't she know anything and couldn't sense anything? She shook her head and laughed at Lu Tianqing, who was about to die but still didn't know. However, it is a little problematic to clean up this matter. Seeming to have thought of something, Juyan rubbed his temples with a headache. The Nether Jail collapsed and the entire Death Jail restrictions were damaged. There were at least 800 deity realm cultivators trapped in the 8th level of the prison, if not 1,000. If all of them escaped and he wanted to capture them, even as an End Realm Saint Venerable, he wasn't confident in succeeding. There was also the 9th layer, the true Death Jail. The few Saint Realm cultivators who gave him a headache would probably try their best to escape. He couldn't help but look towards the void helplessly. If he wanted to clean up this matter, he might have to work with that person. The teen in the red shirt couldn't help but laugh and gloat. He is clearly your junior, but you two are like fire and water. This is your fault, Juyan. However, instead of worrying about the Death Jail, why don't you think about how to deal with the Saint Dynasty? Juyan felt a throbbing pain in his head. Thinking about how chaotic the sky-burning Saint Dynasty was, his scalp felt numb. However, at this moment, Zhong Shou's name was in the Lu family direct bloodline register and on the sky-burning tablet. He couldn't hide this matter even if he wanted to. The sky-burning tablet was one of the foundations of the sky-burning Lu family, the family protecting treasure. He couldn't easily control it. To suppress it, he still needed to work with that fellow. He couldn't help but stare at the teen beside him in annoyance. Grumbling made him think about this annoying matter. Then, he sensed something and turned around to look. Then, he smiled. Hanyan, do you hate me and blame me? Lu Hanyan bit her lips and thought about it for a moment. She nodded her head. Saint Venerable wants me to return to the Saint Dynasty to threaten Shou to return to the Lu family and take over the sky-burning Saint Dynasty? Lu Jian didn't deny it and just said flatly. He is from the Lu family and is the rightful top prince, our Lu family prince. How can he return? I also said that it is up to you whether or not you want to return. Lu Hanyan's eyes opened slightly and then she gave out a bitter smile. Up to her? Since he knew about her stubbornness 20 years ago. She caused her grandfather to lose the chance to step into the End Realm and fall into such a bad situation. If she still had some filial piety, she needed to return to the Saint Dynasty. Even if she couldn't help her grandfather take back everything he lost, she had to try her best to compensate him. If not, no matter where she went, this guilt would follow her for the rest of her life. After 20 years of being a death jail prisoner, she felt that her grandfather, who was high up in the air, was really close to her. She had no choice at all. You aren't willing to leave? If you don't say anything, I will take it as you admitting it. Juyan mocked without any fear. He reached out and grabbed Lu Hanyan in front of him. Are you worried about your Zhong Shou? I will let you see what the world-burning eye is like. A vast wave of true power suddenly poured down from the top of Lu Hanyan's head and gathered in her eyes. Then, what she saw wasn't the scenery of the void. It actually displayed all the scenes in the several space-time layers in Lu Hanyan's vision. The amount of information in that instant almost caused one's sea of consciousness to explode. Moments later, Lu Hanyan signaled over. When she looked closely, her body shook and her eyes were filled with shock. Only to see that the 9-layer death jail was like a tapered tower. At this moment, the invisible flame was burning at the base of the tower, piercing through several layers of worlds. All the natural variants and cultivators were running for their lives in fear. Using the power of the void as fuel, attacking from the source to destroy everything. It was really majestic. Although the flame was formless and formless, it was thousands of times more terrifying than a true flame. At this moment, the 8th layer was just a step away from breaking. As for the other few levels, they were on the verge of collapsing. Lu Hanyan's pupils constricted, and she nearly lost her mind. This was done by Shoer? This was the world-burning blood eye? World-burning true flame can burn worlds. All of the space-time barriers were useless in front of it. All void abilities have to bow down to it. If your kid can step into the Saint Realm, the strength of this flame can increase by 10 times. No one will be able to stop him when he leads the army. He can unify 10,000 worlds. Juyin said casually, "How can we give up on him so easily? How can we not do anything for him?" Just as Lu Hanyan was in deep thought when she witnessed the 9 Hellflame calamity. In the void, just a few worlds away from the 9 Extreme Death Jail, a huge ship was floating in the air. It was the Extreme Light Adversity Crossing Boat. When Zhong Shou entered the 9 Extreme Death Jail, he left this celestial treasure and the Juntian celestial manor behind. At this moment, Lin Xuanxuang was standing at the head of the giant ship. The void storm surged, causing her clothes to flutter without any wind, making her look like a celestial. As for the giant boat, it was swaying unceasingly. However, this place was still okay. With Lin Xuanxuang suppressing, it was barely calm. However, around this place there was a storm. Large amounts of space spiritual energy surged about. Burned by the invisible flames, many of the laws of the void began to crumble and disintegrate. It caused this place to lose all order and become more and more chaotic. This is the Lu family world-burning blood eye, the peak world-burning blood? I have really seen it. Lin Xuanxuang looked on quietly and then asked Jingyin, "Are you thinking that I, Lin Xuanxuang, am throwing a meat bun to a dog or sending a sheep into the mouth of a tiger?" Chapter 950. Are you thinking that I, Lin Xuanxuang, am sending a meat bun to a dog or am I sending a sheep into the mouth of a tiger? Jingyin's eyes were innocent and pitiful as she looked at the person beside her. She thought to herself, when did she even think about all this? He was only curious as to why this soul-stirring commotion had occurred. Also, what was going on with Zhong Shou? Was that not okay? However, for some reason, she felt a huge headache and panic. Lin Xuanxuang didn't care and scoffed coldly. Your true spirit innate intelligence is about to fully awaken. Do you really think I don't know? You must be having a headache. If this person enters the sky-burning Lu family, your Buddhist faction's chances will become slimmer and slimmer. You are also finding it weird that you didn't hide such a treasure and instead threw him into the mouth of the Lu family. Jingyin, you have miscalculated, right? Jingyin shook her head. She really didn't think so much about it. She was just a normal Buddhist disciple. How to convert the unlimited beginning and end Buddha was something the few Buddhist ancestors should consider. It had nothing to do with her. Lin Xuanxuang didn't say anything and just looked into the distance. How would she not know the value of Zhong Shou? How could she not guess the reactions of the few end-realm saint venerables of the sky-burning Lu family? However, how could she stop them? In the future, if Zhong Shou stepped into the peak of end-realm, he would be able to see through everything. Then, she definitely wouldn't be able to hide her selfishness from her disciple. She could only go all out and help him and then allow him to make a choice. Even if Zhong Shou didn't choose Cang Xingdao, she wouldn't regret it. In that case, she would never regret it. Shi Zi's wish was for everyone to be equal, and for the nobles to be equal. All living beings in the world would have land to farm, a place to live, and be able to live in peace. This Zhang Xingdao was built by Shi Zi with many people who had the same goal as him. It was a tool to achieve equality. In other words, as long as it was an equal world, it could be achieved. In that case, the strength of Zhang Xingdao, or even the continuation of his legacy, was not important. That child was also worthy of her expectations. He was the saint king of this world. He was someone who possessed the sacred white monarch aura. The way he governed the country was in accordance with the will of the heavens, and he never owed the people anything. Prince of the Liu clan, the world-burning blood? If he really wanted to inherit the sky-burning saint dynasty, then so be it. It is the blessing of the people of the 800 worlds. Lin Xuanxuang calmly looked in the direction of the 9 extreme death prison. The Aurora Adversity crossing boat instantly moved through the void and quietly glided into the distance. At this moment, the nether prison was about to collapse. The spacetime storm would definitely affect the surrounding dozens of worlds. However, she wasn't using the extreme light adversity overcoming boat to escape. She was using it to leave. The matter of Zhong Shou entering the death prison to search for his mother was over. There was no danger to his life for the time being. In that case, her master's promise could be considered fulfilled. At this point, it was time to deal with his personal affairs. The most important thing now was to try to recover his cultivation and strength in the shortest amount of time. If what she expected was right, within the cloud world, within the common people's vast habitat, there would definitely be an intense battle. As for Jingyin, it was too dangerous to leave her by Zhong Shou's side, so it was best to bring her along. Just as he was thinking about this, a golden light suddenly pierced through the void and arrived. It seemed like it was also exhausted, swaying about in the intense space-time storm. Lin Xuanxuang's eyes squinted, reaching out and grabbing it. It was the Mahist's golden void feather sparrow. However, this item came from within the common people's vast habitat. Even if she had fallen for thousands of years, she still had many old friends and subordinates within Zhang Xingdao. After luckily going through the tribulation and rebuilding her body, she knew everything within Zhang Xingdao like the back of her hand. There was only one jade letter in the stomach of the void feather sparrow. Lin Xuanxuang took it in her hands and in just a moment, a cold smile appeared on her face. Su-er, I really don't know what to say about you. Your calculations were really good, causing Long Ying to become a saint, and he owes you a favor. Also, Sister Yuanjing took the shortcut to become that End-Realm Saint Venerable. You used all sorts of methods to split the Taoist faction. A book of universe caused the various factions of the cloud world to be distracted and go all out to snatch it. You thought that you were already prepared and that there would be no danger. However, that Qing Xian has been waiting for you for thousands of years. This person was able to cause Shi Zi to die, so how could his methods only be limited to this? Everything that happened before was just him acting weak to make you feel lucky. Sighing slightly, Lin Xuanxuang had a complicated expression on her face. Wei Su was the most talented out of all of Shi Zi's disciples, and his personality was the most similar to his master's. However, although this disciple of hers was always flawless, his weakness was the same as his master's, that he was prideful. If he was willing to bear with it and delay it for dozens of years, when the various factions fought and were at a stalemate, he would definitely step into End Realm. However, with Wei Su's personality, he definitely wouldn't let go of Zhang Xingdao's chance to revive. He would definitely take the risk and try when the cloud world's spiritual wave rose. Zhang Xingdao was able to go all out against the various factions and not just stand by and do nothing. However, his actions were exactly what the few Taoist ancestors wanted. This was why she wasn't willing to tell Zhang Xingdao that she had reformed her body and had broken free. Even a wise person would make mistakes. Wei Su's plans couldn't include her, so naturally, he would be more careful and try to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Similarly, her presence would also be the blind spot of the enemy. She would stay out of this matter and look on from the side. At the crucial moment, she might be able to help Wei Su. However, with her body that hadn't recovered, how much could she do? Zhong Shou, that kid was not bad, but unfortunately, she revived too late. If she wasn't careful, Song Xingdao would really be in danger of being wiped out. If Zhong Shou was in the sky burning Lu family, he might be able to avoid this calamity. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty. Lin Xuanxuang was startled. A message from the jade slip suddenly flashed into her mind. I have laid out the soul-refining sword formation to defend the common people's vast habitat. Only the soul-refining sword has no master. The revered one used 1,000 years to collect 7 types of heaven-grade metal to replicate the soul-refining main sword. Although it isn't the real thing, it can merge with the 6 swords. Defending the vast habitat should be easy. Within the sect, there are rumors that the soul-refining sword spirit isn't here anymore. This was why no one was able to control this sword for thousands of years. It could merge with the 6 swords? Lin Xuanxuang was stunned and then burst out laughing. That's right. It had already been a few thousand years since he perished during the tribulation and was trapped in that dilapidated world. Shi Zi's 6 disciples were all outstanding talent. They were 1 in a million. At this moment, she should have refined all the swords that Shi Zi left behind. As for the soul-refining sword artifact spirit, Lin Xuanxuang turned around, her gaze instantly passing through dozens of space barriers. She landed in the nether jail. It was the body of Zhong Shou who used the world-burning blood eyes to burn world. Her gaze locked onto the blood-red sword that was floating at the side. Wasn't the true soul-refining sword artifact spirit here? That Shi Zi's aura was something that she would never forget. When she reformed her body and was in a daze, she nearly thought that Zhong Shou was the reincarnation of Shi Zi's remnant thoughts. Thinking about this, Lin Xuanxuang couldn't help but burst out laughing. What was this? The sword formation was formed, but he still had to spend so much effort to craft that replica. There was a treasure mountain beside him, but he didn't know about it. This Wei Su was really slow on the uptake. Other people didn't know about the strength of this sword formation, but she had personally witnessed it. Killing an End Realm Saint Venerable wasn't a lie. Although it wasn't a true kill, if one's cultivation wasn't as high as Xiuguan's, it was best if one fled. She clenched her hand and crushed the jade letter into pieces. Lin Xuanxuang didn't stay any longer and continued to control the flying boat to fly into the distance. There were still many pieces of information within that she didn't take a look at. However, Lin Xuanxuang didn't care. No matter what Wei Su didn't know, no matter what the Taoist sect and demon sect did, it didn't matter. As long as she had that sword, it was enough. When the entire nether jail world became more and more unstable, when the world-burning flames spread to every corner of the world, the restrictions spread all over the nether jail also shook. This included the dozens of crosses that Zhong Shou saw when he first arrived. The restrictions were broken and the death jail restrictions were unable to absorb essence energy and vital energy. Everyone's faces were filled with uncontrollable joy. They struggled with all their might, but the seal that had previously rendered them immobile and helpless was now like a piece of paper. Wu Yazi laughed out loud, his voice shaking the sky. It broke, it actually broke. Good, it really burned well. I wonder who it is that has such a remarkable ability? Who knew that I, Wu Yazi, would be able to break free one day? Amidst the explosion of energy, the seals shattered one after another. The entire iron cross was also constantly twisting. In the end, there was a loud explosion and it turned into dust. After breaking free from the last restriction, Wu Yazi stood in the air and roared out. It was an indescribable joy, an indescribable carefree feeling. Then, he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed. A deity realm cultivator in the distance, who hadn't completely broken free from the seal, was forcefully captured and brought to his side amidst bursts of explosive sounds. The head instantly exploded. Wu Yazi placed his mouth on the neck and drank large mouthfuls of blood. Then, he laughed out loud. I haven't tasted such delicious blood in a long time. This is so refreshing. His skinny body quickly swelled up and regained his vitality. Wu Yazi's aura was also crazily growing. In the end, he scoffed coldly and turned his head to look at the middle-aged man who had broken free at the same time as him. Yi Xian. A fierce look flashed in his eyes. Wu Yazi's body flashed and he appeared beside the middle-aged man. The weird and chaotic magnetic power tore the space here into thousands of pieces. Wu Yazi's hand directly reached for the middle-aged man's neck. He didn't like this person for a long time. The essence blood of a peak god realm cultivator would definitely be delicious. Wu Yazi's injuries were healed and he was about to touch the middle-aged man. However, Yi Xian's expression didn't change. He only sighed slightly. You think you're strong and can look down on your peers, but you don't know that there are people who like to hide their strength. It's best if a demon like you doesn't go out and harm the world. An energy sword condensed in his right hand. Then, it flashed and swept through the air. Blood splattered everywhere. Wu Yazi's face was filled with disbelief as he looked at his hand. His arm had been cut off. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chidian.com. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 951. Wu Yazi was filled with disbelief as he looked forward with a startled expression. The gap between the two of them was just too huge. At this moment, he didn't have any fighting spirit or thoughts of taking revenge. If he could, naturally he would want to flee. However, he was locked down by the sword intent such that he couldn't move at all. Apart from the fear in his eyes, he also became more and more confused, more and more venomous. Are you the only one who can be arrogant and not others? Wu Yazi said expressionlessly as the dozens of iron frames flew over. First, it twisted into a fried dough twist in front of him. Then, it collapsed inwards and condensed into the shape of a sword. Although it wasn't refined, there was a sharp and overbearing sword intent wrapped around it. Wu Yazi's pupils constricted. No. Yi Xian, you are that person, Xiaoyao Xian. The moment he said that, Yi Xian frowned and then broke into a laugh. You know too much. Yi Xian doesn't use the name Xiaoyao anymore. With a light wave of the sword that he had refined on the spot, Wu Yazi's head was sliced off with a single slash. At this moment Yi Xian looked around. The conflict between the two of them ended in just a few breaths. Those God Realm experts who broke out all looked on in shock. They couldn't believe that such an outcome would occur. Wu Yazi, who usually did whatever he wanted and didn't care about anything, actually wasn't able to take one sword from Yi Xian. Following which, fear appeared in everyone's eyes. They didn't hesitate to flee. They tore open the restrictions and barriers that had become really weak due to the sky burning flame and fled into the distance. Yi Xian wasn't interested in these people at all. He looked on coldly as they left and sighed. Idiots! Don't they know that these invisible flames are the Lu family world burning flame? The nether jail was broken. Did these people think that they could escape? Only the highest sky burning bloodline could have the world burning true flame. If it was End Realm, then the power of this flame power was just too low. He should have burned all of them to ashes long ago. However, this fire was the true peak-level sky burning ability. The only possibility was that a descendant of the Lu clan had achieved a peak bloodline. For such a huge matter, how could the sky-burning Lu family not have End Realm Saint Venerables around? How far could he run at this time? Yi Xian looked up at the sky unwillingly. His eyes were filled with helplessness. as expected of a clan that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Only now did they show some signs of decline. Yet, there was such an outstanding junior who suddenly rose up, making others feel despair. Silently pondering, Yi Xian also sensed for a moment. Then, he hung the crudely made sword on his waist. He walked towards the south. That was where the Abyss Gate was. That place should be his only chance of survival. He stepped into the void, and in an instant, he traversed 100 miles. In just a moment, he was near the Abyss Gate. Looking out from afar, he noticed that 200 miles away from the Abyss Gate, one old and one young were facing off against each other. Yi Xian's pupils constricted. That old man was obviously a Saint Realm venerable, but Yi Xian didn't even look at him. His gaze was focused on the teen. Wasn't this person the teen he saw dozens of days ago? That pair of blood eyes should be the world-burning blood eyes. This teen who charged into the 9 Extreme Death Jail alone to search for his mother was the top bloodline descendant of the sky-burning Lu family? This kid was Lu Hanyan's son. In other words, he wasn't even 30 and was just celestial realm. What a surprise and also what a shame. He had a thought and a weird expression appeared on his face. Hanyan's son? That was the direct great-grandson of the sky-burning Saint Emperor who grasped the world-burning blood. Speaking of which, he should be the Zongzi of the sky-burning Lu family, the top heir of the Saint dynasty? Maybe. The moment such a thought flashed in his mind, he suppressed it. Looking forward, in that instant there was a slight change in the aura. Yi Xian's gaze also turned towards the red-robed old man. His right hand couldn't help but grab onto his sword. This person's murderous intent was clearly born. At this moment Lu Tianqing was panting. His body was covered in sweat, drenching his heavy clothes. 5 signs of celestial decay. First sign of celestial decay. First sign of celestial decay. Second sign of celestial decay. Third sign of celestial decay. At this moment, he was showing signs of the third sign of celestial decay. He was maintaining the 8 layers of hell so that it wouldn't totally collapse. He pretty much used up all his true chi and true chi. At this moment, he was squeezing out that precious life essence energy. However, he still wasn't able to stop this collapsing power. Instead, his soul was being burned by the invisible flames and was being forced back. A series of cracking sounds spread out from all around. Pieces of space-time fragments were disintegrating and dispersing into the void outside the realm. He was really clear that he couldn't stop it. This piece of Nether Death Jail was destined to be destroyed. How could this happen? How could this happen? How could he, Lu Tianqing, be destroyed here? Should he let go of everything and flee? Although this region was huge, where could he flee to? If he lost the Lu family and had no chance of advancing, he would only be able to live for 200 more years. Most of his descendants would be dragged down by him and would become slaves of sinners. His gaze turned sharp as he viciously stared forwards. The source of all this was this kid. Those blood-red eyes were still looking coldly at him, filled with disdain. However, it made Lu Tianqing more and more furious. He really wanted to dig out and destroy the world-burning blood eyes that the sky-burning Lu family had been looking forward to for thousands of years. Wait, destroy? Lu Tianqing's eyes flashed and then his killing intent exploded once more. Anyways, he was going to die anyway, so why not just die together with him? He couldn't just watch on as the person who caused him to fall into such a situation returned to the Lu family perfectly fine. He wanted to be the top prince, the next sky-burning Saint Emperor and bully his own descendants. The moment such a thought rose, he saw Zong Shou laugh coldly. "Do you think that I can't do anything to you? You want to die together with me?" Lu Tianqing was slightly startled. This kid actually guessed his thoughts. He confirmed that there weren't any illusions around him. He broke out into a laugh. At this moment, this kid could only use his tongue to delay. No matter how bright his future was after he died, he would just be a pile of dirt. He didn't hesitate anymore. Millions of silver threads shot out from his sleeves and flew towards Zhong Shou. Under the gaze of the blood eyes, threads of silver threads were twisted and broken. However, there were even more silver threads that surged endlessly. Lu Tianqing couldn't take it anymore and wanted to laugh out loud. He was really delighted. Despair, right? Helplessness, right? Just now, he was the same. Today, with the top prince of the Lu family accompanying him to death, he didn't waste his life. However, in the next instance, he saw the pity and mocking expression in the blood eyes. Hong! With a loud explosion, Lu Tianqing's knees were smashed into pieces. He couldn't stand straight and suddenly knelt down in front of Zhong Shou. Those silver threads were all blown into dust at that moment. An extremely majestic voice spread out from the distance. Trying to kill the top prince of the Saint dynasty. Lu Tianqing, you really are bold. The voice was deep and majestic, like steel. A shattering sound rang out. It was an intense will that was so vast that it could shatter everything in this place. It was as if he was enraged to the extreme. Under the impact of this sound wave, the surrounding space of thousands of feet scattered like broken wave. Under such heavy pressure, Lu Tianqing's teeth nearly shattered and blood seeped out from his mouth. However, he still couldn't suppress the fear in his heart as he exclaimed, "Yenyuan Saint Venerable!" This voice, this spiritual sense suppression, it was definitely Yenyuan Saint Venerable. His expression was filled with shock. How did this Saint Venerable come so quickly? No, this matter was really weird right from the start. Zhong Shou's bloodline mutated and awakened the world-burning Saint blood. He was also from the sky-burning Lu family. Although his ranking was low in the past, he was one of the direct bloodlines. Why didn't he sense anything? No, it wasn't that he didn't sense anything. He had experienced the surging of his bloodline and the signs of reversing several times before. However, he didn't pay attention to it and didn't think about it. It was a knowledge barrier. He could only see it but not know. The moment such a spiritual sense appeared in his mind, instantly all the barriers were removed. So that was the case. Yenyuan Saint Venerable didn't rush over from hundreds of worlds away. He had been waiting here for a long time. Poor him, he had fallen into such a trap and didn't even know about it. Then, who was the one plotting against him? Pretty much instinctively, he thought about that person's name. Extreme Flame Saint Venerable. Lu Juyan. A maniacal roar spread out from Lu Wushuang's throat. His voice was hoarse and filled with bone-deep hatred. Apart from this person, he couldn't think of anyone else who could cause him to fall into the knowledge barrier and not even know about it. What was laughable was that he pitied Lu Juyan and treated Lu Hanyan and her son so cruelly. However, he didn't expect that he was the most pitiful one. You're really annoying. You couldn't take care of this 9 extreme death jail. You knew that the world-burning blood would awaken and sacrifice an entire world. However, you didn't wake up and allowed the top heir of the Lu family to awaken his bloodline and destroy this nether jail world. This is a crime. Yenyuan Saint Venerable's voice was emotionless as he spoke. It was so calm, like he wasn't judging but was just describing. Lu Tianqing's heart turned ice cold as he looked into the sky helplessly. His fate was decided long ago. When Juyan saw this kid, his fate was already decided. From the start, he had fallen into a trap. Zhong Shou's bloodline awakening most probably relied on the restrictions of this nether jail. However, if Juyan said that the Lu family would be able to take a nether jail, this Saint Venerable had probably decided to take Lu Tianqing's life 10 days ago. However, at this moment, what was the use of hating him? Looking up, one could see the sky that was breaking apart. However, it was like one could see Julian's disdainful smile. At this moment, Yenyuan Saint Venerable's voice continued. The second crime is that after the matter happened, you didn't think about making up for it. You were filled with hatred and wanted to harm the crown prince. Both crimes are unforgivable. Do you have anything to say to defend yourself? Runes suddenly appeared in his eyes, causing Lu Tianqing's body to suddenly twist. Fear instantly appeared in the latter's eyes. It wasn't just his body that was being torn apart by thousands of different forces. Flames also seeped in and burned his body. However, this was not enough to make him panic. What was truly unbearable was the excruciating pain. This was an intense pain that made one wish they were dead. They wished they could kill themselves at this moment and cut off all the muscles in their body. He instantly understood that this was an illusionary technique. It was Zhong Shou who reflected the pain he had suffered in his mind. However, at this moment, he couldn't block it at all. It hurts, right? You wish you could die right now? However, the pain that my mother suffers every day is 10 times, 100 times more than this. Zhong Shou laughed, his fingernails digging deep into his flesh, his violent energy calming down. You should feel fortunate that I haven't lost my mind and could do those beastly things. The glow in his blood eyes changed once more. Many talismans that merged with the heaven path formed together, like one black and one white, yin and yang fish images. Meanwhile, Lu Tianqing's figure was shattered into pieces and exploded into a mist of blood. Only a remnant soul broke out. Before it could escape, Zhong Shou forcefully grabbed it. Yenyuan Saint Venerable only destroyed this person's cultivation and strength before not doing anything. He just wanted to toss this person to him to deal with. However, Zhong Shou was really calm. There was no reason why he didn't take Lu Tianqing's life, just because he didn't want to owe Yenyuan Saint Venerable a favor. Thinking back to those red hummingbirds and the scenes of that day, his chest felt pained. However, even though you have died a quick death, my endless hatred cannot be dispelled. I heard that the Buddhist faction has the 6 paths of reincarnation technique and also the vow oath technique. Today, I will take some cause and effect and am willing to swear on the unlimited beginning and end Buddha body. I hope that you will fall into the path of animals for all eternity and become the food of animals. Lu Tianqing's remnant soul instantly struggled intensely. However, it was already too late. There was a low explosion around Zhong Shou. One of the netherworld death gates seemed to open impatiently. Countless amounts of death chi seeped in, and there was also an extremely powerful pulling force. It forcefully dragged Lu Tianqing's crying soul into the nether gate. When the nether gate closed, Zhong Shou looked around. Yenyuan Saint Venerable's spiritual sense had already retreated, leaving no traces at all. This nether jail world had lost its last support along with Lu Tianqing's death. The source was slowly being burned by his world-burning flame, and it was collapsing more and more. Zhong Shou's heart instantly felt empty. However, he didn't hesitate and didn't have any reluctance. With a step, he left the nether jail world. The collapse of a world would definitely cause a huge commotion that would affect numerous spaces. Even the 9 extreme death jail would form a Shuang ocean. The impact wasn't something that the current him could take. Stepping out of the void, Zhong Shou reached out and grabbed toward the 7th layer of the death jail. The death jail restrictions were indestructible in the past and Zhong Shou couldn't do anything about it. However, at this moment, he totally disregarded it. With the world burning blood, there was nothing he couldn't do in the death jail. In just a moment, Zhong Shou pulled Lu Wubing out of the Spirit Ocean death jail to his side. Lu Wubing expressionlessly looked at Zhong Shou like he wasn't surprised at all. A bright glow flashed in his eyes and then he bowed deeply. Congratulations, ruler, for obtaining the world-burning blood. Since it was the world-burning blood, then he wasn't just the ruler but also the ruler of the race. Zhong Shou frowned and then shook his head. Are you the same as my master and predicted this? Lu Wubing gave out a bitter smile. How would he have such ability? No matter how much he looked at Zhong Shou, he wouldn't have predicted it. Zhong Shou's bloodline had such a shocking change in the death jail. Only when he reached the 5th layer did he roughly guess what was going on. Ruler, no matter whether or not I guessed it, you still need to enter the 9 extreme death jail. Zhong Shou kept silent. He really couldn't blame Lu Wubing for this matter. Then, his pupils constricted slightly as he looked into the distance. 3 figures appeared a breath away from where they were. Even if one of them turned into ashes, he would still recognize him. It was Zhu Yan, who had stopped him for 10 days and tormented him for 10 days on the 8th floor. However, at this moment, his attention was on the woman on the left. It was his mother. At this moment, her eyes were filled with emotions as she looked over in a daze. Her eyes were filled with tears like she had many things to say to him. However, she was restricted by an external power such that she couldn't open her mouth. Mother, Zhong Shou instinctively wanted to step over. However, although he had such a thought, he wasn't able to get half a step closer. Even with the world-burning ability and Dao Seed Star, he couldn't do it. An invisible barrier was blocking in front of him such that he couldn't cross it. Instantly, he was unable to suppress the rage in his chest as he stared in the direction of Lu Juyan. At this moment, the only person who could stop him was this Juyan Saint Venerable. Lu Juyan smiled like he was really happy. He didn't care about Zhong Shou's gaze at all. Within 10 years, Shou, you have to remember to make a trip back to the Saint Dynasty. You are the top prince of our Lu family, the future sky-burning Saint Emperor. However, since you were born, you have never been to the Saint Dynasty to worship the ancestral temple. That is just too preposterous. His words were like the instructions of a senior to a junior, and it carried a hint of pure teaching. When Zhong Shou heard this, he wasn't angry but laughed instead. Return to the Saint Dynasty to worship the ancestral temple. You sky-burning Lu family people are looking down on me because my bloodline isn't pure. Aren't you afraid that an outsider like me will stain your ancestral temple? What kind of angry words are you saying? Juyan broke into a laugh. His expression was helpless like he was looking at a kid who was venting his anger. You are my only great-grandson, the Lu family head Zhongzi. If your bloodline isn't pure, then the sky-burning Saint Dynasty won't have a direct bloodline. As the top prince, who would dare to disrespect you? If someone doesn't know what's good for them, then I will help you kill him? Zhong Shou was speechless. He had never seen such a weird and shameless end-realm Saint Venerable. He took in a deep breath, and Zhong Shou tried his best to calm himself down. I don't remember changing my surname. Moreover, if you want me to head to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, then release my mother. Zhong Shou. Holding my mother hostage, is this your sincerity? Han Yan? Your mother is willing to follow me back to the Saint Dynasty to visit the sky-burning Saint Emperor. We haven't seen each other in 20 years and she really misses you. As Juyan said this, Zhong Shou was slightly stunned. He turned around and looked at his mother, only to see her nod her head towards him with a serious expression. Juyan smiled once more. If you want to see her, then just come to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. Isn't it great that your family is reunited? Zhong Shou clenched his fists tightly, the bones in his body crackled. His gaze was like a knife. He really wanted to punch this Saint Venerable's face. Juyan didn't see it at all, or maybe he saw it but he didn't care. His gaze was mocking like he was saying, so what if you hate me? So what if you are angry? In the end, you still have to listen to him. That is all I have to say. Whether or not you come is up to you. The Saint Dynasty's battles are much more intense than you can imagine. If you don't come, then you will regret it for the rest of your life. After saying this, Julian's body slowly faded away. The figures of Lu Hanyan and the girl in red also disappeared. Zhong Shou's body flashed and arrived where the three of them were, but he missed. At this moment, a sigh spread out in his ear. In the end, I still dragged you in. If you like this work, then you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 953. In the end, Shoer, you were dragged into this. A voice spread over and a person appeared beside Zhong Shou. He patted Zhong Shou's shoulder to comfort him. Zhong Shou kept silent and didn't say a word. Although his heart was filled with rage and hatred, he felt even more helpless. He couldn't do anything to this extreme flame saint venerable. He didn't understand why Lu Hanyan was willing to go back with Julian. Then, he heard the person beside him say in a melancholic tone, "You don't have to do that. Your mother gave birth to you and owed your grandfather too much. Although she had escaped, she still had her own responsibilities and debts to pay. The sky-burning Saint Emperor is a righteous person and shouldn't have been betrayed and chased down from the throne. Not only am I happy that your mother made such a choice, but I am also happy to see it happen." Zhong Shou frowned. He didn't understand the grievances within and what his parents went through. However, since Zhong Weiran said that his mother had a reason to do that, then she definitely had her own difficulties. He didn't expect that the sky-burning Saint Emperor Liu Beiwu would have such a high evaluation in Zhong Weiran's heart. Sighing slightly, Zhong Shou turned around and looked beside him. He hadn't seen his father for many years, and he looked more and more handsome. There were more firm lines on his face. His body was still thin, but he looked more like a bare mountain. However, his eyes were also filled with many vicissitudes. Although the current situation wasn't good, he was still in a daze. Although Zhong Weiran tried his best to hide it, he couldn't hide it from his newly awakened blood-eye ability. Bowing respectfully, Zhong Shou said, "Father, it has been tough on you. I came late." Just now, he knew that Zhong Weiran was hiding at the side and Lin Xuanxuang was waiting outside, which was why he wasn't afraid of Tianqing Venerable. With the world-burning blood-eye, his combat strength was comparable to peak God Realm in the 9 Extreme Death Jail. Working together with Zhong Weiran, it was enough to fight against Lu Tianqing. However, at this moment, he felt fortunate that Yenyuan Saint Venerable acted in time. Although the father and son had a chance of winning. Even if they won, Zhong Weiran's injuries would be even heavier. He felt guilty. If his father didn't give him the Book of Ian, why did he have to do that? Becoming a saint in one step and holding the book. At that time, even if he faced end, he would be able to escape. Or did you see through it? The peak ability of the Liu family is really amazing. Zhong Weiran smiled and shook his head. "I just hid here for 2 years. Compared to your mother, it isn't much. However, it is all thanks to you that I was able to get out. You show S's you." Just now, he had sent Lu Tianqing into the 6 paths of reincarnation. I hate you. However, is it appropriate to be tainted with the karma of Buddhism? To SSS's. After a few words, he listened to Zhong Weiran's worry. His heart warmed slightly and he explained, "It's fine. If you have too much debt, you won't worry about it. It's a small matter." He also hated Lu Tianqing to the bone, especially the red Fengfeng bird matter. To be able to send him into the animal path and torture him for 10,000 lifetimes, such a price wasn't much. Moreover, unknowingly, he owed the Buddhist faction a lot. At most, the Buddhist faction would open another jail and create a world of pure bliss. If he had the ability, then he would help out. Just a little. He couldn't do more. Zhong Weiran broke into a laugh and looked forward. With such a son, what more could he ask for? Then, he thought back to Lu Hanyan who left with Juyan and his face dimmed. After 20 years, although the two of them met, they didn't even speak a single word. When she came to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, she was in danger and had to deal with numerous knives and arrows. His eyes flashed and Zhong Weiran said seriously, "Show her. If you can, why not make a trip to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty? Go help your mother and great-grandfather." Zhong Shou was startled and looked back. Zhong Weiran's face dimmed. "Although I am her husband, I am still an outsider to the Lu family. If I interfere, not only will it not help, but it will also make her situation worse. Right now, the only one who can help your mother is you." Zhong Shou was silent when he heard this, deep in thought. Go to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty to be the top prince of the Lu family? Wasn't that what Juyan wanted? However, he didn't have any other choice. Just as he was thinking about that, he saw Zhong Weiran turn his head and look in the direction of the destroyed 9 Extreme Death Jail. His brows furrowed. "Who are you? Why did you follow me and not leave?" At this moment, Zhong Shou felt that the energy in that direction was weird and a sense of danger rose up in his heart. In the next instant, he saw a person step in from the void. It was a middle-aged man. Although he was only dressed in a sackcloth and had a low-quality sword by his waist, he looked very calm. However, when he walked over, he looked really elegant, making one's heart fall in love with him. In the last life, Zhong Shou focused on the sword path, and in this life, he also worked really hard. His senses were really sharp, and he could see the sword intent that was gathered at the center of his brows. "I am Yi Xian. I used to have the name of Dao Xiaoyao. 70 years ago, I failed and was trapped in the Nether Jail. Speaking of which, not long ago, your Highness should have seen me." Yi Xian stood still a breath away, and then looked at Zhong Shou with a burning gaze. "Since your Highness wants to head to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, then you should have people to help you. Is your Highness willing to accept me as your subordinate? Sky-burning Saint Dynasty young master, top prince, I can't be too poor." When he said this, Zhong Shou and Zhong Weiran were both stunned. Yi Xian mocked himself. Although the Nether Jail has collapsed, there are 2 end-realm spiritual senses locking down the space here. If it was just one extreme flame saint venerable, Yi Xian would dare to take the risk. However, with Yen Yuan, then there is nothing I can do. I have been trapped in the death jail for 70 years, and I am not willing to stay any longer. I can only ask young master for help. It wasn't that Yi Xian was praising himself. Before I was imprisoned, no one below Saint Realm could block one sword from me, Yi Xian. Even Tianqing Venerable might be able to fight against me. I will definitely be able to help young master. The first few sentences were to explain the doubts between Zhong Shou and Zhong Shou. The words that followed were about cultivation and ability. A heaven-covering sword intent rose up to prove his words. Not only was Zhong Weiran shocked. Zhong Shou's brow rose up and he was slightly interested. He had seen this person before. Just as he entered the 8th layer of the Nether Jail. Pretty much at the same time, thousands of worlds away. The sky-burning Saint Dynasty that Zhong Shou and Zhong Shou were discussing was deathly silent. Especially in front of the ancestral temple where numerous Lu family disciples were gathered. However, it was totally silent such that one could hear a pin drop. On one side, they were waiting for the vital energy changes of the sky-burning Saint Tablet to settle down. On the other hand, they were trying their best to absorb the bloodline retracement power. Everyone's expressions were solemn and filled with surprise. The more Lu family side bloodline disciples were, the more joyous their faces were. Logically speaking, those who were further away from the family, the benefits they would get wouldn't be as good as those of the direct bloodline. However, when the sky-burning blood reached a certain level, it would be really tough to raise it. On the contrary, side bloodline disciples who originally had a weak bloodline power could greatly raise their grade. This was why in front of the ancestral temple, be it young or old, no matter their status, no one dared to be distracted. With Lu Yunji's identity as the second prince, naturally, he didn't need to mix with these low-grade disciples. At this moment, he was standing not far away from the Saint Tablet in a building and looking down coldly. Kiki! This sky-burning flame actually rose by a full grade. How rare, how rare! I heard that such a situation only happened 7,000 years ago when Yenyuan Saint Venerable went through his end-realm tribulation. My Lu family really has someone who grasped the world-burning blood eye. Behind Lu Yunji, Lu Daoyan also opened his eyes. At this moment, the bloodline retracement power was close to its end. He just needed to split his spiritual sense to deal with the remaining portion. Lu Daoyan stopped sitting and walked to Lu Yunji's side. However, the moment he walked to the railing, he felt the vital energy in his body move once more. Slightly startled, Lu Daoyan instinctively glanced at Lu Yunji. He was filled with shock, was it? It still hadn't ended? No. Even after the few Lu family end-realm cultivators went through their tribulations, it didn't feel like this. After it moved, it calmed down. Then, there was only one possibility. That person who grasped the peak ability of the Lu family still had potential. Or maybe, someone who was really close to him had signs of advancing and could also retrace the entire race. Lu Daoyan's eyes instantly turned dark. No matter which one it would cause huge changes to the current sky-burning Saint dynasty. Lu Yunji's expression didn't change, and he didn't notice at all. Lu Daoyan's brow rose up and he knew that there were only two possibilities. One was that Lu Yunji already found out but acted calm. The other was that he was too far away from the branch that mutated. He immediately chuckled and acted as if nothing had happened on his face. Looking at the situation, the Saint Tablet is about to be revealed. There would probably be a huge change in the Crown Prince ranking. I don't know what position cousin can you be placed in? However, you probably won't be able to keep your position as second prince. His words were filled with a mocking tone and he was gloating. The Lu family Crown Prince position had always been split into 5 categories. The first was bloodline, the second was merit, the third was talent, the fourth was strength and cultivation, and the fifth was family. For Lu Yunji to be able to take the position of second prince, his strength and cultivation were not bad. Secondly, Xianhua and the other country rulers were supporting him. Thirdly, the merit he accumulated over the past few decades made him one of the top talents in the Lu family. However, after today, who knows how many people in the Lu family would have their bloodlines improve. On the contrary, this person had stopped cultivating long ago. It was obvious that he didn't gain much. Naturally, he far exceeded those from the side branches. However, out of the many crown princes, he was definitely at the bottom. To be continued. Chapter 954. The Lu family didn't allow people of the same race to marry. However, there were still taboos between close relatives. As Lu Yunji was far away, he was chosen to be Lu Hanyan's husband. However, at this moment, he was definitely the one who benefited the least. However, Lu Yunji didn't seem to care at all. Not only was he not angry, he even laughed involuntarily. Why should you, Lu Daoyan, worry about my ranking? Moreover, that voice paused for a moment as Lu Yunji's cold gaze swept over from the corner of his eyes. Even if you, Lu Daoyan, are able to surpass me in terms of ranking, you will still be able to defeat me. I wonder if little brother Yen will be able to sit firmly on the throne? Lu Daoyan's brow rose up. He felt that cold gaze was like a knife stabbing into his heart. It was like it was real, making one's heart feel like it was being sliced. After looking at him for a moment, Lu Yunji's gaze calmed down. It is best if you don't get killed when you head out. Brother Daoyan should be used to such things. How many direct bloodline descendants have fallen in the sky-burning Saint dynasty over these few hundred years? Lu Daoyan's heart jumped and then he was furious. You dare to speak to me like that? These words were almost a naked threat. However, before he could scold him, Lu Yunji's cold laughter interrupted him once more. You were the pride of the heavens in the past, but you fell to the point where you can't even maintain your top 5 position. I know that you are angry and aren't happy with me. However, if you want to blame someone, blame your bloodline. There are too few talents and no one to carry on your legacy. Lu Hanyan, that bitch, appeared. Lu Daoyan felt stuffy in his chest and his eyes turned red. It was like endless amounts of hatred and grievances were accumulated in his chest. Lu Yunji wasn't willing to let him off just like that. He said flatly, Cousin Daoyan, since you are already a stray dog, then you should know your place and stop barking randomly. You must know that there is a limit to one's patience. Who knows, one day you might get angry and kill this ownerless dog to get some peace. Don't you think that makes sense? He continued. It isn't easy for you to maintain your current position. Don't come and offend me for no reason. To be more direct, even if I order one of my subordinates to kill you, I will still be able to do so. Who in the sky-burning Saint dynasty could do anything to him? The sky-burning Saint Emperor who was about to abdicate? That's right, this person is the only one you can rely on now. However, that person couldn't even protect his only granddaughter. How could he protect you, Lu Daoyan? Lu Daoyan's body trembled. His face was ashen, and he was almost speechless. Lu Yunji roared with laughter instead, and it seemed to be filled with indescribable arrogance and delight. If there was a day when I could become the sage emperor, I would be happy. Once he grasped power, he would use all his strength to ensure that Liu Beiwu's bloodline would never be able to rise again. He would definitely torture that bitch to death. However, these words were kept in his heart and could not be spoken out loud. At the next moment, Lu Yunji's heart stirred as he looked below the pavilion. At that moment, the gazes of countless people were also focused on the stele. The light around the sky-burning Saint tablet gradually faded, and the blood color that lingered within finally started to solidify. Words appeared at the bottom of the stele. Lu Yunji's heart twitched. No matter how shrewd he was, he still felt a little nervous. Actually, just now he shouldn't have said those words to Lu Daoyan. He didn't need to bother about his mocking words. However, the changes today made him nervous and he lost his usual mental state. For some reason, since a few days ago when he found out that someone might have advanced to the Lu family pure bloodline, he felt anxious and uneasy. He felt that this matter was a little weird. Even if he asked around, he was unable to find out who the person who suddenly rose up with the sky-burning bloodline was. Before this, there were no signs and he also didn't hear that there was such a talented person in the family. Could he have popped out from a stone? No matter how he thought about it, he still couldn't figure it out. Lu Yunji shook his head and continued to look at the stele. At this moment, the first name had already appeared on it. Lu Shichen? Lu Yunji murmured, then frowned again. This name was a little foreign. It wasn't one of the original 49 princes. Then, more names appeared, but they were all people he hadn't seen before. He had heard of some of them, but with their sky-burning bloodline and talents, they shouldn't have been able to do so. However, with their sky-burning bloodline, they shouldn't have been able to become princes. Was it because of the bloodline retracement? Lu Daoyan at the side calmed down. He laughed silently. There are a little too many princes this time. It was likely that the number far exceeded the number of 49 people. Such a grand scene had only occurred 7,000 years ago. I think country ruler Xianhua and cousin will be busy in the following days. Lu Yunji knew what he meant and his expression was really cold. In the past, there weren't many princes, and those country rulers and elders could suppress them. In the future, the sky-burning Saint Emperor would become one of the 8 country rulers. As for who would rise and who would fall, it would be controlled by those few people. However, now that the number of competitors increased, it was a little problematic. As long as one was from the sky-burning Lu family, who wouldn't be ambitious? To be able to become princes, one naturally had some connections and had some status in the sky-burning Saint dynasty. It seemed like after today, the Saint dynasty would have to go through a huge shuffle before they could decide. However, out of the 9 princes, the one with the most unstable position was Lu Daoyan. He was the one who had the highest chance of being kicked down. At this moment, he still had the mood to use words to stab him? What a joke. He couldn't be reasoned with. As for Lu Yunj, he had been running for 20 years. His foundations in the Saint dynasty were firm, and there were 6 to 7 Saint realm elders that he could borrow strength from. How could he be so easily shaken by those newcomers? Lu Yunj was too lazy to reply as he continued to look. Only to see that after 60 names appeared on the stone stele, a familiar name appeared. The princes aren't just 7. Are they 108? Such a thought flashed across his mind, but Lu Yunj felt that something wasn't right. However, he couldn't think of what was wrong. Lu Daoyan's body tensed up and he clenched his fists like he was trying his best to suppress his emotions. He seemed to have noticed something. Lu Yunj wasn't willing to ask this person and kept silent. At this moment, there was an uproar below the building. They were all shocked by the changes in the princes. However, apart from those new people, there weren't many other changes. They were all the few direct bloodline disciples left in the Lu family, and the benefits they obtained from the bloodline retracing were similar. The blood patterns on the stone stele reached the top of the stele in just a moment. At this moment, everyone knew that it was the most crucial moment, the time for the 9 princes to be ranked. They all held their breaths and the chaotic discussions also calmed down. Even Lu Yunj and Lu Daoyan were focused, their eyes filled with nervousness. Lu Junyu, Lu Gaoga, Lu Mingyang looking at the few names gathered, Lu Yunj was stunned. Thinking to himself, how did this happen? In his eyes, even if someone rose up and snatched the top prince position, it would still be the same. Among the top 9, there was only one person who fell out of the top 9. However, at this moment, there were 2 people who weren't chosen and weren't among the 9 most important princes. At this moment, everyone around the ancestral temple was buzzing. Many powerful auras arrived one after another. More than a dozen divine wills filled the sky. In the surrounding pavilions, all the people who had the right to have a place in the pavilions all stood up, their eyes filled with disbelief. Lu Yunj also clenched her silver teeth tightly, her mouth making cracking sounds. Numerous thoughts and guesses flashed across his mind, but he didn't understand anything. 7th, 6th, another 2 names appeared on it. Lu Yunj's eyes were filled with surprise once more. Why weren't the 7th and 6th names Lu Daoyan? Could it be that this fellow didn't even make it into the list of candidates this time? From the corner of his eyes, he saw that the trash beside him was smiling. What was he so gleeful about? Just as Lu Yunj was filled with confusion, he saw another name appear at the top of the stele. Lu Yunj was slightly absent-minded. His eyes were filled with confusion. Why was he 5th? Even if his ranking dropped, he should be 4th. Why was he 5th? His gaze was like a knife, wanting to pierce through the stone stele. He saw that above his name were the 3 blood-colored words Lu Daoyan. He was startled once more and couldn't help but grind his teeth. What did this trash do to deserve this? His ranking actually skipped the 3 of them and was above Lu Yunj. Cousin Yunj, have you noticed that most of the people who can raise their rankings are from the Yenyuan Saint Venerable bloodline? Lu Daoyan's voice rang out once more. However, there was no longer that morbid resentment and hatred that he had before. Among these new candidates, My Yenyuan bloodline has taken up a full 30% of them. As for the rest, aren't they people who are close to the sky-burning Saint Emperor? At the start, Lu Yunj didn't understand. Then, his pupils constricted. It really was the case. Looking at the rankings on the stele, it was as Lu Daoyan said. No wonder he felt that something was wrong. A weird expression flashed and Lu Yunj suppressed the shock in his heart. Killing intent exploded out in his heart. So what? It would just take a little more effort. How could Lu Yunj allow Lu Beiwu's bloodline to have a chance to rise up? Country ruler Xian Hua had offended him to death, so he definitely wouldn't sit still and do nothing. Lu Daoyan laughed. Do you know what this means? The person with the world-burning blood eyes, even if he isn't a descendant of Yenyuan Saint Venerable, he should be really close. Just as he said this, the name of the third-ranked crown prince had already appeared. It was Lu Huanxiao. Looking at this name, the two of them weren't surprised. This person was originally the first crown prince. However, they were more and more curious about the other two. In less than 1,000th of a breath, another name appeared on the saint's stele. Lu Hanyan. The moment this name appeared, Lu Yunj's heart jumped. The railing in front of him was smashed by his hand. How could the second prince be her? To be continued. Chapter 955. The moment this name appeared, Lu Yunj's heart jumped. The railing in front of him was smashed by his hand. How was she the second heir? Shouldn't this bitch be in nether jail being punished? How was she chosen by the stone stele to be the heir? Even 20 years ago, before this woman was caught and imprisoned, she was only ranked 4th. 1 year in nether jail could consume 10 years of lifespan. That woman at most had a few decades to live. How did she become the second heir of the sky-burning Saint dynasty? How did the 9 extreme death jail do things? Why didn't Lu Tianqing, that old fogey, tell me anything about this? There was an explosion in the square below. Everyone couldn't take it anymore, exchanging glances with one another as they discussed. Lu Hanyan, which Lu Hanyan is that? Who else can it be? It is most probably the sky-burning Saint Emperor's direct granddaughter, the past Saint Dynasty princess. However, since that matter happened 20 years ago, she was kicked out of the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. Didn't the punishment hall chase her out of the sky-burning Lu family, take away her heir status and lock her up in the 9 extreme death jail? Who knows what is going on? Could it be that something has happened? Did you all notice that Yenyuan Saint Venerable's bloodline took up 30% of the 108 heirs? That is really the case. Which means that Yenyuan's descendants obtained the most benefits from the bloodline retracing. Why do I feel like a storm is about to arrive and a huge change is about to happen? Those discussions were exactly what Lu Yunj was thinking about. He listened on quietly. His face first turned green and then it turned dark. Lu Daoyan was also shocked, muttering to himself, Hanyan? Why is it Hanyan? She is back, she is ranked 2nd. Then, he thought about something and couldn't help but laugh out loud. It is good that she is back. It is good that she is back. I am really happy. She is really happy. Cousin Yunj, this is a joyous matter, what do you think? Although he still wasn't sure why the crown prince's name changed, he still didn't know why. Why would Lu Hanyan's name appear on the saint plaque? However, he knew that the situation in the holy court would definitely change drastically. Lu Hanyan was once again a candidate for the crown prince. In other words, the crime of being his cousin was most likely cleared, and she was no longer a sinner of the Lu family. What happened back then would be overturned once again. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been recognized by the Lu clan's ancestral court and Saint Stele. But after this, if there weren't 1 or 2 powerful figures in the clan supporting him from behind, how could Han Yen be absolved of her crime? As for the sky-burning Saint Emperor, he probably didn't need to bear with it for Lu Hanyan. In the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, even if they couldn't recover, their bloodline disciples wouldn't fall to the point where they could be bullied by others. The joy in his heart was simply indescribable. I know that Cousin Yunj has always had a wish. But unfortunately, I'm afraid Cousin Brother won't be able to do it again. What was Lu Yunj's wish? He wanted to continue suppressing the people close to Lu Hanyan after he ascended to the position of Saint Emperor so that this faction would never have a chance to rise up. Over the past 20 years, Lu Daoyan had accumulated countless grievances in his heart. Now that he had a chance to vent, naturally he didn't care. Lu Yunj, on the other hand, let out a muffled groan. At this moment, he really wanted to slap this noisy fly to death. Country ruler Xianhua left this person to give him a place out of the 9 crown princes. This was for the sake of the family and also to take care of Yenyuan Saint Venerable's face, in case that sky-burning Saint Emperor Liu Beiwu became desperate. In the Yenyuan bloodline, only this person was the most useless. However, at this moment, this was the first time he felt that this person was so annoying. If he had a chance, he would make this person die without a burial place. A violent intent flashed across Lu Yunj's eyes before he calmed down. However, he could only bear with it. Before he understood everything, it wasn't the time to act up. Clenching his fists, Lu Yunj waited quietly for the last name to appear. However, at this moment, the saint plaque paused for a moment. Only then did the red blood light start to gather once more. At the start, it was a Lu word. After everyone raised their heads in anticipation, it was a Shou word. Lu Shou, who is Lu Shou? Lu Daoyan was stunned and didn't know what was going on. This Lu Shou name was really foreign. He remembered that there was no such person in the Saint dynasty. However, he remembered that he had heard of this name before and it was only recently. All of a sudden, he was in a daze and didn't remember who he was or where he heard it from. Lu Yunj's body shook intensely, the last bit of blood on his face retreating. He was in a daze, his body stumbling as he took several steps back. Lu Shou was Lu Hanyan's son, the one they recognized as a dual meridian body, a remnant soul body, a bastard who couldn't cultivate. The Lu family pureblood was actually him. So that was the case. Everything now had an explanation. No wonder Lu Hanyan could be ranked second. Was it because of the mother's genes? Naturally, this bitch obtained the most benefits from the bloodline retracement. To give birth to a pure-blood descendant of the Lu family, she naturally did a lot. However, should that bastard be called Lu Shou or Zong Shou, how could he have the world-burning blood? Didn't they say that only with family members of the same race would one's bloodline be pure? The heavens really didn't open their eyes. Such thoughts flashed across Lu Yunj's mind. At this moment, there was an uproar in front of the saint plaque. Lu Shou, who is Lu Shou? It is okay if Lu Hanyan is free and becomes the second prince. But who is this Lu Shou? I have never heard of him. There shouldn't be such a person in the sky-burning Saint dynasty. No. I remember that not long ago, there was a new person who was ranked 17th in the direct bloodline name list. Is that so? He hasn't returned in a long time and didn't know that there was such a change. You are the one who is ignorant. During these 2 years, he has shocked our Lu family. However, I have only heard of this person's name and have never seen him. His ranking isn't high, so I didn't pay much attention to him. It's strange. I don't know which faction raised this person, but he's been hidden for so long. This time it's really amazing. I heard that this Lu Shou is the son of Lu Hanyan and an outsider. You must be joking. That year, Lu Hanyan was willing to lower herself to find a so-called monster race native of the cloud world, a 7-tailed sky fox bloodline native. It is already not bad that her son didn't die early due to the conflict of the bloodline. In the building, Lu Daoyan came back to his senses. Then, he couldn't suppress his emotions and laughed out loud, close to being crazy. His voice spread out and shook the dozens of miles of space in front of the ancestral temple. Lu Shou, isn't it Zhong Shou? He is the son of my cousin. To be able to let Han Yen be free and become the second prince, if it isn't that kid, who else can it be? The trash in your eyes is the only pure-blooded person in the Lu family who grasps the world-burning blood eye. When all of you schemed against the Saint Emperor that year, all of you were worried about him. Did you think that there would be such a day? Lu Yunj was at the side and he gritted his teeth so hard that they nearly broke. The entire square was deathly silent once more. No one spoke, only exchanging glances with one another. The Lu family disciples here were all really shrewd. They knew that if what Lu Daoyan said was true, then the Lu family was about to change and a storm was about to arrive. The few powers in the Saint dynasty would definitely change once more. At this moment they had to be really careful with every word they said. No matter how they fought, it was a matter for the upper echelons. However, if they joined in, if they weren't careful, they would be smashed into pieces. However, there was a portion of them whose eyes were shining. He was the only pure-blooded and the top prince of the Saint dynasty. It seemed like he was in an undefeatable position. Thus, in front of the ancestral temple, only Lu Daoyan's arrogant laughter reverberated, until a cold scolding spread out from the void. "Shut up!" A strong spiritual sense spread through the air and a majestic body appeared above the saint's stele. Lu Daoyan's arrogance instantly stopped. He felt like his soul was about to be crushed by this person's spiritual sense. He couldn't say anything more. Lu Yunj relaxed. The person who came was country ruler Xianhua. 20 years ago, in such a tough situation, Liu Beiwu had pretty much taken control of the situation. This person still managed to turn the situation around and forced Liu Beiwu to retreat. Moreover, the current situation was much better than that year. However, just at this moment, another person appeared above the Saint Temple. He was also extremely handsome and had a majestic aura, giving off a majestic aura. The moment this person arrived, the spiritual sense suppressing Lu Daoyan was forced aside. He also scolded coldly, "How dare you make so much noise in front of our ancestral stele? You can head to the punishment hall to receive your punishment later." Not only was Lu Daoyan not shocked or annoyed, but he was startled as he looked at this person. Sky-burning Saint Emperor Liu Beiwu. He actually stopped cultivating and appeared in front of people for the first time in 20 years. The emotions in his chest surged and Lu Daoyan suppressed it. He bowed solemnly, "I know my mistakes and accept your orders." Liu Beiwu didn't bother, just looking at the top of the saint's stele at the names Lu Hanyan and Lu Shou. His expression didn't change, but his eyes were filled with emotions. Along with the two of them arriving, dozens of people appeared in the air above the square. It caused the place to be even more silent, totally silent. These people who stood in the air were either country rulers, heads of the 5 halls, or Doyen venerables of the Saint dynasty. They all had high statuses and were really strong. Their cultivation was at least above Saint realm. The hundreds of thousands of Liu family disciples below felt that it was tough for them to breathe. However, they still raised their heads and looked at their expressions to deduce the current situation. Most of them didn't show their emotions on their faces. However, a portion of them were either happy, angry, or worried. At the same time, a voice suddenly came from the crowd. "I wonder if the saintess can explain a thing or two to us? Who is this Lu Shou? This person has done nothing for our Liu family. How can he steal the position of the first crown prince?" Chapter 956. I wonder if the Holy Maiden can explain a thing or two to us. Who is this Lu Shou? This person has done nothing for our Liu family. How can he be the top heir? When these words were spoken, it attracted dozens of sharp gazes in the air, which all swept over in unison. However, the person who spoke was really calm. being stared at by dozens of Saint Realm venerables, he didn't show any fear or nervousness. A look of admiration appeared in Lu Yunji's eyes. He was most disgusted by the Lu family's crown prince's 5 theories. No matter how many merits he had, how many enemies he had crushed on the battlefield, in the end, he was always at a disadvantage in terms of ranking. Sometimes, no matter how much merit he had, it couldn't be compared to the small increase in bloodline purity of others. Everything that happened today made Lu Yunji really unhappy. The sky-burning saintess who stood in front of the ancestral temple kept silent for a moment under the gazes of hundreds of thousands of people. The sky-burning Lu family heir has 5 theories. In terms of bloodline, merit, talent, strength, and family. Her voice was ethereal and spread to every corner of the area. In terms of family, this Lu Shou is the son of Lu Hanyan, the only great-grandson of the sky-burning Saint Emperor. In terms of bloodline, he has been proven by sky-burning and Yin Yuan. He does have our Lu family pure-blood, world-burning flame eyes. In terms of talent, he stepped into celestial realm in 20 years. This has never happened in the Lu family in tens of thousands of years. In terms of strength, he has an end-realm saint venerable as his master and is the disciple of Cloud World Long Ying. As for merit, she paused and the saintess didn't speak anymore. That cold gaze swept around indifferently. Everyone here knew what she meant and they were all really calm. In terms of merit, this person became a pure-blood. Bloodline retracement allowed all Lu family disciples to obtain pure sky-burning blood. It also allowed the Lu family to not worry about the sky-burning bloodline degenerating for a few thousand years. There were also numerous God Realm and Saint Realm Lu family experts who obtained a chance to improve because of this. In terms of merit, this was a huge merit. It was even more beneficial than the Lu family opening up dozens of worlds. Moreover, since a few thousand years ago, the territory of the Lu family had not increased for many years. In the pavilion, Lu Daoyan laughed softly. Cousin Yungu, in my opinion, it's best to put away your little thoughts. If it was a few thousand years ago, your meager contribution would have been nothing. She actually had the nerve to feel wronged? What a joke. If it wasn't for Country Lord Xuanhua's special care, how could a trash like you, who even abandoned your fiancé, be ranked second in the Lu clan? Compared to you and my nephew, who had no one to rely on since childhood, but crawled out of the quagmire and benefited the whole family. Lu Yunji, who do you think you are? He hated Lu Yunji's previous threats, so he spoke without any scruples. Just make it sound as unpleasant as possible. He didn't even bother to lower his voice so that the people around him could hear him. Many people turned to look at Lu Yunji. Their gazes were either filled with pity, schadenfreude, ridicule, or pity. This caused Lu Yunji to feel more and more furious and unbearable. There was a thorn within which he couldn't take the pity and disdain in their words. Luckily, at this moment, the person who spoke in front of the Saint plaque spoke once more. It attracted everyone's attention once more. Then, why is Lu Hanyan ranked second in the Crown Prince position? Are you going to tell me that it is because Princess Hanyan gave birth to a pure-blood descendant? He still didn't fear the gazes of the Saint Realm venerables in the air. As for the sky-burning saintess, she also raised her head. A pair of cold, jade-like eyes were shining brightly. The mother is important, so why not? Since Lu Shou is the only pure-blood in the family, then his mother's identity is naturally the second in the family. She also contributed greatly to the family. After Princess Hanyan entered the death jail, she didn't slack off at all. Roughly half a day ago, she went through her tribulation under the protection of the extreme flame Saint Venerable and entered God Realm. The sky-burning Saint Venerable is the God treasure of the current world, established by the ancestors. For tens of thousands of years, the rankings have never been unfair. You all don't have to worry. The Lu family disciples didn't pay attention to the words that followed. All the knowledgeable people were attracted by the words going through tribulation under the protection of the extreme flame Saint Venerable. Extreme flame Saint Venerable was helping? In other words, this extreme flame Saint Venerable's stance was clear. He wanted to join hands with Yenyuan Saint Venerable? It wasn't just a matter of two end-realm Saint Venerables, but the two main branches of the Saint dynasty. There were dozens of Doyen Venerables and at least two country rulers, two Saint Halls working together. At this moment, even Lu Yunji's face turned white. Only Lu Xianhua, who was in the air, was still calm and his expression didn't change. The sky-burning saintess paused once more. She hesitated and a moment later, she opened her mouth. The two Saint Venerables said something else. Lu Hanyan took 20 years of extreme techniques and was stimulated by the bloodline mutation of her son. She is showing signs of advancing. Although she can't reach the pureblood realm, she can be of help to our Lu family. There is also one more thing. 9 Extreme Death Jail Venerable Lu Tianqing was careless and caused the Nether Jail to be destroyed. After which, he tried to kill the top crown prince. Yenyuan Saint Venerable killed him in rage, and has already reported to the punishment hall. His family is also sent to the death jail. There was a loud explosion which instantly spread throughout the entire White Jade Square. Hundreds of thousands of people were in an uproar. Only people like Lu Daoyan, who were close by blood, were really calm and not surprised. He thought to himself, so that was the reason why the retracement power calmed down. As for the other people, most of them were stunned, but they were also filled with anticipation. It wasn't easy to be a pureblood, and one Lu Shou was already a miracle. However, to be able to cause the bloodline power to reach the level of the entire family, the improvement would definitely be huge. No wonder. This sky-burning Saint Tablet would make Lu Hanyan, who was locked up for 20 years, the second crown prince. At this moment, no one cared about the Lu Tianqing matter that the sky-burning saintess mentioned. Only Lu Yunji felt a chill down his spine as he thought back to everything that happened that day. At that time, Lu Tianqing obviously sensed something, but unfortunately, he wasn't wary enough. He raised his head and looked into the sky. He saw that Xianhua and Xian Ye's expressions were cold and solemn. The former's face was dark and gloomy. However, the two of them both had killing intent in their eyes as they looked at the person in the crowd who was questioning the Holy Daughter in a loud voice. Lu Yunji was really smart and was slightly startled before he knew the reason. This person looked like he wasn't happy and was asking, but he had nefarious intentions. To ask such a question in front of so many people, he was really scheming. He was trying to sway people's hearts. Was he trying to build momentum for that mother and son? This person deserved to be killed. The moment such a thought rose up, he heard a majestic voice ring out in the sky. 20 years ago, because she married someone outside of the family, she was deemed a sinner by the Lu family. Now, she is the second crown prince of our Saint dynasty. That kid who was said to have tainted our Lu family bloodline is the only pure blood apart from end-realm descendants. Thinking about it now, wasn't the punishment hall head a little too careless with his punishment? Lu Yunji looked out and the corner of his eyes twitched. This was Fangjue, the current Sangyan hall head. Apart from feeling rage in his heart, he also felt ice cold. 20 years ago, the punishment hall head was Xianhua. The spearhead of these words was that Xianhua didn't handle it well that year. Was he trying to overturn the case? Xuanhua's gaze was as cold as a blade as he looked over. Fangjue didn't stop, instead, he laughed coldly. Because of this preposterous punishment, our pure-blood crown prince, future end-realm Saint Venerable, is still outside and can't return to the Saint dynasty. The heavens have opened their eyes and young master didn't die so early, struggling until now. If not, how can the losses of our sky-burning Lu family be measured by a world and a country? Xuanhua's brow rose up like he wanted to speak, but he stopped himself. He was speechless. Looking around, he saw dozens of gazes looking over. Some were blaming and some were warning him. At that moment, he didn't try to defend himself. He just snorted and flicked his sleeve with a cold smile. He didn't bother about Fangjue's words and walked away. Xianyi, who was still standing in the air, sighed. His expression was weird, and who knew what he was thinking about? Lu Beiwu's gaze was calm as he looked at the two names at the top of the stone stele. It was like he could see the person through the name. What you are saying is that you want to be loyal to me? Outside of the broken nether jail space, Zhong Shou sized up Yi Xian. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't interested. Although he hadn't personally seen this person's sword technique, he knew that he was a sword expert. However, as people who cultivated in the sword, their senses were really sharp. The person in front of him was a pure sword cultivator. His sword technique was top, and he should have reached peak spirit realm. He was just half a step away from God realm, which was why he was able to merge with the Tao. His combat strength was probably several times stronger than Ao Kuan before he grasped the existence technique and entered Saint Realm. Zhong Shou definitely wasn't his match. With this person under him, it would be like having a super strong helper by his side. Whoever he was unhappy with, he would be able to teach them a lesson. As long as he didn't face End Realm Saint Venerables. Even normal Saint Realm Venerables would be able to challenge him. However, he knew his place. His small temple wouldn't be able to accept such a god. How could such a tyrannical swordsman be a fish in a pond? He definitely wouldn't be able to obtain this person's true loyalty. Thinking about it for a moment, Zhong Shou still shook his head. If you want to serve the top heir of the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, the Lu family young master, then please forgive me, Zhong Shou, I can't agree. If you want to join my Deqian celestial dynasty, with my current strength, I won't be able to support such a top sword cultivator. What a joke, there were still hundreds of celestial realm cultivators on the jade plate in Lu Wubing's hands. With his small territory, it would be tough for him to raise all these people. At the very least, they would need to conquer at least 20 minor kiliocosms in a short period of time. If he had another peak God realm expert, even if he sold Zhong Shou, he wouldn't be able to afford it. Chapter 957. Yi Xian shook his head and broke into a laugh. If I enter the sky-burning Saint Dynasty and work for young master, then everything I need will be provided by the Saint Dynasty. Young master, don't you know that any Saint Dynasty crown prince has the right to use a portion of the sky-burning Saint Dynasty's finances and manpower? This was especially true for the first prince of the Holy Hall. He had 2 Saint Realm cultivators to worship. As for the God Realm experts below, there were as many as 12 of them. So that after the crown prince ascends, there will be suitable people to use. Seeing Zhong Shou frown and was about to speak, Zhong Shou stopped him. Yi Xian stopped speaking and turned towards Zhong Weiran. The young master is unwilling, but old sir should know the young master's situation. You won't reject? What old sir? Zhong Weiran is still young. Zhong Weiran didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His expression turned serious as he thought about it. There is no reason to reject, but it is a little hard on you. Zhong Shou was startled when he heard this, looking at Zhong Weiran in shock. Zhong Shou was really calm. His gaze, apart from doting, was also filled with a look that didn't allow him to reject. He was enlightened. It seemed like his father had made up his mind to let him go to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. He was conflicted about this matter. On one hand, he was filled with grievances towards the Lu family and was filled with rage. On the other hand, he was worried about his mother's situation in the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. Although he thought about it, it was tough for him to make a decision. However, Zhong Shou knew that he had no choice at all. Since that was the case, then there was no need for him to be so pretentious. If he wanted to head to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty alone, he would be too weak. To be able to have Yi Xian, whose strength was comparable to Saint Realm cultivators, to help him, thus, he was speechless and didn't say anything, silently agreeing to Zhong Weiron's decision. However, he still had doubts in his heart. This person was willing to work for him, so it wasn't just for that simple reason. Since that is the case, then, young master, please accept Yi Xian's bow. A light flashed through Yi Xian's eyes. He bent down once again and bowed. Zhong Shou raised his eyebrows. With a serious expression, he walked over and helped Yi Xian up. This was to establish their status as ruler and subject. Therefore, both sides were exceptionally solemn and followed the ancient etiquette. Young master, something's not right. From now on, you should be addressed as Lord. Yi Xian got up and said calmly. Yi Xian joined the sky-burning Saint Dynasty and became master's subordinate because he had other requests. However, they would definitely not interfere with his lord's important matters. Their goals would also not conflict. It could even be said that they were like-minded. Yi Xian is alone and weak. He can only rely on his lord's strength to achieve his wish. He said, I see that those two End Realm Saint Venerables love Master a lot. He definitely couldn't allow people with ulterior motives to follow beside the Master. If I had bad intentions towards young Master, then how would those two Saint Venerables have allowed me to live until now? Although his words weren't true and he didn't say his true goal, Zhong Shou's brow was filled with understanding. Thanks to Lu Wubing, he had some understanding of the sky-burning Saint Dynasty. He knew that his mother's and his biggest enemy was that country ruler Xianhua. With the help of the other two monarchs, he was undoubtedly the most powerful person in the Holy Hall right now. Next was country ruler Xuanye, who also had a place in the Saint Dynasty. He had once worked together with Xianhua to make the sky-burning Saint Emperor a mere figurehead. However, when he competed with Xianhua, it exceeded that of working together. However, once he used his identity as the top prince to enter the Lu family power battle. Then, this country ruler Xuanye would most probably join hands with Xianhua once more. Moreover, with the Lu Wushuang matter before, the chances of both sides reconciling were really small. As for Yi Xian's goal, it was most likely one of the two. Dao Xiaoyao? He probably couldn't investigate this person's background. He just needed to ask Lu Wubing, and it wouldn't take long for him to find out his name. Although the last sentence made him feel annoyed, what did Zhong Shou have to do with Jian? However, he had to admit that Yi Xian's words did make sense. Just as he was thinking about that, Lu Wubing's expression changed. Yi Xian, Dao Xiaoyao? Xian Dao Xiaoyao, right? Linghong World, the previous master of Xiaoyao Xian. He once fought against 3 Saint Realm experts and shocked many worlds. I remember 70 years ago. Before he finished, Yi Xian pressed onto the rusty sword by his waist. A wisp of sword intent locked onto Lu Wubing's source soul. However, there was a smile on his face, speaking of which, it is embarrassing. It is like a heart demon that causes me to wander about every night. Yi Xian doesn't want anyone to mention it in front of me. Lu Wubing was stunned and decisively kept quiet. He nodded his head towards Zhong Shou. He was telling him that this person should be trustworthy. Zhong Shou was more and more curious. Using Peak God Realm body to fight against 3 Saint Realm experts? That was really amazing. What kind of experience did he have to be trapped in the 9 extreme death jail? However, he didn't continue to ask. This matter was okay. Yi Xian only said that he couldn't mention it in front of him. He could just ask Lu Wubing in private and naturally he would know the truth. He didn't continue to ask. Zhong Shou reached out and a few spiritual fragments appeared in his hand. These were the items that Lu Tianqing left behind. Although he used his blood eye ability to turn him into blood dust, he still had some spiritual fragments left behind. However, these items were left behind. Zhong Shou was a thrifty person and wasn't willing to waste anything. After his rage calmed down, he kept these items in his sleeves. Most of them were space artifacts. Zhong Shou searched for a moment and his eyes lit up. How could there not be a decent weapon left behind by a saint venerable? Reaching into the space artifact, Zhong Shou took out a green-colored sword artifact that had sword energy around it. This is for you, it is better than the one at your waist. Treasured swords were given to heroes, beauties were given to beauties. With the nameless sword, he wouldn't be able to use this sword artifact. As for Yi Xian, the thing at his waist that couldn't even be considered a spiritual sword was a little too shabby. What sword cultivators feared the most was relying too much on external strength. However, a good sword artifact was really important to one's combat strength. Oh? Intermediate celestial weapon, Tianqing sword? This sword isn't compatible with my sword path, but it is better than nothing. Thank you, young master. Yi Xian took it and took a look. He accepted it without any hesitation and hung it at his waist. As for the one that he crafted, naturally, he tossed it to the side. Then, he asked, what is ruler prepared to do? Should we head to the Saint Dynasty now? No. Pretty much the moment Yi Xian said this, Lu Wubbing anxiously opened his mouth. Nether Jail is destroyed. The two End Realms Saint Venerables probably need some time to deal with the remaining matters in the 9 Extreme Death Jail. It isn't time to head to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty now. However, we can't stay here for long. The commotion here will definitely attract many people to investigate. I think that ruler should wait for a year or two to build up your foundations before returning. Yi Xian held his breath and looked at Lu Wubbing, who was wearing a mask. His lips curled up. Interesting kid. He didn't say anything and didn't have any objections. Zhong Shou and Zhong Weiran exchanged glances with one another, their eyes filled with helplessness. She knew that Julian was still nearby, but she didn't leave. However, there was nothing she could do, and she couldn't see him. Julian definitely wouldn't let them get what they wanted at this moment. Then, Lu Wubbing said, Ruler has left for too long and the Yuanren world and Cloud World's foundations aren't stable. I am afraid that something will happen over there. Zhong Shou's heart tightened. This was what he was most worried about now. Before he came, he didn't expect that he would be delayed by several months in this 9 Extreme Death Jail. The Cloud World was fine for now, with Kong Yao taking charge and Song Xingdao taking care of it. Hong Jiuqin definitely wasn't someone who knew his place. There was also Tianfang Guild Tanjing, who wouldn't let things rest just like that. Mu Fang and Wanderer Fu Yu were once intimidated by him. However, once Zhong Shou didn't contact him for a long time, he naturally had the courage to take the risk. Before heading to the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, it was best if he got rid of all these problems. At this moment, he didn't know what was going on with the Cloud World and Yuanren world, so there was no point in thinking about it. However, Zhong Shoxin laughed coldly. Before this, he was worried about many things, which was why he didn't swallow up the Yuanren world. However, the current him wasn't afraid of the threat of those few powers. If those few people were willing to be well-behaved, then it was okay. If they really wanted to take their lives, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. He made up his mind to return to the Yuanren world. Zhong Shou didn't hesitate at all. Father, let me introduce you to someone. He is one of my masters, Song Xingdao. However, just as he said that, Zhong Shou was stunned. He swept around with his spiritual sense, but he couldn't see the extreme light adversity crossing boat. Not only was it gone, but he also couldn't sense where Lin Xuanshuang's spiritual sense was, like it had never existed. After a long while, he reached out with his spiritual sense. He took out a golden talisman. The message within was left by Lin Xuanshuang. Disciple, now that you have fulfilled your wish, you don't have to worry about your life. I have other things to do, so I will take my leave first. I am here to visit a friend, and try to find a chance to recover my body. Disciple, don't worry about me. There is also Jingyin, that seductive girl. I was worried that you would be charmed by her, so I brought her away. Zhong Shou's forehead was filled with green veins. He thought to himself that it would be impossible for him to worry about this master who didn't respect himself. Where was his extreme light adversity crossing boat? Where was the Juntian celestial manor? What he truly missed were only these two things. The former was used to travel, and the latter was used to show off. The emperor of a celestial dynasty needed to show off a little. He found it with much difficulty, and this Lin Xuanxuang took it away just like that? And also Jingyin, who was the one who harmed her. Zhong Weiran looked at his son's exasperated expression and found it interesting, smiling as he looked on. However, moments later, Zhong Shou felt that he had lost his composure. He took in a deep breath and calmed down, saying awkwardly, "My master seems to have other things and has already left." At this moment, he had no choice but to release the blue fire Xian turtle. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.